subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Visitors and found that they were two men and a woman. The woman has an excellent appearance and an excellent figure, but their attention is not on the woman now, but on the man in front of them. The man was wearing casual clothes, his eyes were cold, and he exuded a strong sense of oppression. Kagane Shinji swallowed his saliva and murmured, "Who is he? How can he be so powerful?" Ida Reiko's expression was serious, and she also didn't know the identities of the three people. Kagami Taiga was still confused at first, but saw a familiar figure. He exclaimed unconsciously, "It's you." Siren and others were surprised, and Kawara Koichi asked quickly, "Kagami, do you know them?" Kagami Taiga's expression became extremely serious. He nodded and said, "I know the man behind me, but I didn't expect that he is also from Sakura country." Everyone looked at Hongtsu and Shiojua behind Fang Jilai. Hongtsu smiled slightly, waved his hand, and said hello. "Kuroko-san, long time no see." Everyone in Chungrin turned their heads in surprise and asked, "Kuroko, aren't they also in the Age of Miracles?" Kagami Taiga also became interested after hearing this. Kuroko Tetsuya shook his head no. After hearing this, everyone became even more confused, since it was not the Age of Miracles. What was going on with that aura just now? Fang Jilai's cold face suddenly changed. He smiled and said, I have something to talk to you about. We'll wait for you outside. When you're ready, come alone." After saying that, Fang Jilai walked out of the arena with Nijimura Shuzo and Satsuki Momoi. The people in Chungrin were left with puzzled faces, and Papa collapsed on the ground. After Fang Jilai and the others left, Chunglin and others couldn't wait any longer and began to ask, "Kuroko, who are they?" Kagami Taiga is most interested because he knows Nijimura Shuzo. Yet Kuroko, who are they? Kuroko Tetsuya looked at everyone and began to say, "They are my former teammates." Everyone was puzzled. "Since we were your teammates, isn't it the Age of Miracles?" Kuroko Tetsuya shook his head. "No, the two of them left Sakura country and went to beautiful country after our first grade." Kawara Koichi suddenly remembered. "Kagami, did you say you knew one of them?" Kagami Taiga nodded sternly. Chapter 145. The light is too strong. When I was in the beautiful country, I met the man standing behind just now. Kuroko Tetsuya thought for a moment and said, "His name is Hongtsu Shiozao, and he was our captain at the time." Hinata Junpei was suddenly stunned and exclaimed, "Are you talking about the former number 1 power forward in the middle school, Hongtsu Shiozao?" Kuroko Tetsuya nodded. "Yes." Siren, the number 1 power forward in middle school and the captain of the Age of Miracles, all gasped. Its strength must not be underestimated. Hinata Junpei murmured unconsciously. Unexpectedly, he actually appeared. Suddenly, Hinata Junpei turned around and asked, "Kagami, how did you meet him?" Kagami Taiga told everyone about his acquaintance and the result of the duel. After everyone heard this, the expressions of surprise on their faces became even more intense. Kagane Shinji showed a panic expression on his face and said, "I didn't expect that Kagami's strength would not be able to get a single point in his hands." Kuroko Tetsuya explains, "Senior Nijimura's strength was very strong before. He must have continued to follow the beautiful country. I'm not sure about his current strength," etc. Ida Reiko suddenly remembered something. If Hongtsuin is already very powerful, then who is the man in front of him? Hongtsuin seems to be headed by that man. After hearing this, everyone felt that it made sense and quickly asked, "Yeah, Kuroko, who is he?" Kuroko Tetsuya opened his mouth and explained, "His name is Fang Jilai. Maybe you haven't heard of his name, but you must have heard of his nickname, Rubik's Cube." Everyone in Siren was stunned when they heard it. After a moment, Hinata Junpei swallowed, still a little doubtful of what he just heard. "Kuroko, you mean that person is the Rubik's Cube that is above the Age of Miracles?" Kuroko Tetsuya nodded. Everyone in Chungrin was immediately heartbroken. It's over, it's over. The Age of Miracles alone has already made people breathless, and now the Rubik's Cube has also appeared. Kagami Taiga was confused. He had only heard of the Age of Miracles, but not the Rubik's Cube. Kagami Taiga quickly asked, "What is the Rubik's Cube you're talking about? Also, I seem to have heard the name Fang Jilai in the beautiful country." Kagami Taiga doesn't pay much attention to the professional league. He spends every day in the beautiful country playing one-on-one with Tatsuya Himuro or completing Alex Garcia's training tasks. So he didn't know about Fang Jilai's achievements in the beautiful country. He had only heard about it. And the time when Kagami Taiga left happened to be the day before the scouting physical test report was released. The plot requires it, so don't spray it. Hinata Junpei began to explain to Kagami Taiga. Kagami Taiga's face showed shock after hearing this, but at the same time, his heart also ignited a burning desire to fight. Hinata Junpei sighed. "I didn't expect that not only Nijimura, but also the Rubik's Cube would appear. The next competition will be difficult." Ida Reiko nodded and said, "That's right, because judging from how they appear together, they are probably from the same school." Kagane Shinji exclaimed, "No way, a Rook's Cube that is superior to Age of Miracles, plus a captain from Age of Miracles. The two of them are in the same school. Wouldn't they be invincible?" Hinata Junpei nodded with difficulty. "Yes, no matter which school the two of them go to, that school will become a popular contender for the championship." Kuroko Tetsuya said in surprise, "Not only that, but the girl behind them is also not simple. She was our teak consultant before." "What?" everyone shouted, their surprise overflowing. Hinata Junpei pressed his temples and murmured, "The only thing I can pray for now is that they don't go to other teams that are already strong." When everyone fell into despair, Kagami Taiga suddenly said, "What are you afraid of? We are playing against a strong team." Ida Reiko cheered up in time. "Kagami is right. Although others are strong, we are not weak either." Hinata Junpei was infected by everyone's fighting spirit. He smiled relievedly and said, "That's right, we are also very strong this year." After saying that, Hinata Junpei stretched out his hand. Seeing this, everyone took out their hands and put them together with Hinata Junpei, and then shouted together, "Come on. Classmate Jilai, I'm late." Kuroko Tetsuya walked up to the three of them and spoke. Fang Jilai turned around and smiled. "It's not too late." Kuroko Tetsuya looked into Fang Jilai's eyes and asked, "Classmate Jilai, what do you want from me?" Fang Jilai nodded and slowly said, I need to know what happened after we left." After hearing this, Kuroko Tetsuya's face changed instantly, and she became a little frustrated. Then Kuroko Tetsuya told the reason. Turned out to be, ever since Akashi Sidro became a different person, the atmosphere in the team began to change. Although everyone is training seriously, inner barriers have gradually begun to arise. And after Akashi Sidro changed, he was no longer willing to pass the ball during the game, choosing more singles. Aomine Daiki once questioned Akashi Sidro, but Akashi Sidro said, "I think with our current strength, we don't need to cooperate. If we want to score, we have to rely on our own strength to grab the basketball." After Akashi Sidro said these words, the atmosphere of the team completely changed. Everyone no longer communicates with other people, and they are not willing to pass the ball during the game. He always starts attacking when he gets the ball. Although Atsushi Murasakibara is training hard, he is more lazy to move on the court. He almost stood under his own basket and did not move, and the other four people began to grab a ball. Everyone attacks by themselves. There is no such thing as passing the ball. Light is too powerful. When the light reaches a certain level, there is no room for shadows. Yes, Kuroko Tetsuya was abandoned. Although he was not expelled from the basketball club, he never played the court again and was always on the bench. Kuroko Tetsuya once wanted to give up his beloved basketball because he felt that the goal of everyone in Teak to play basketball had changed. However, Kuroko Tetsuya did not quit the basketball club because of an agreement with her best friend Shigehiro Ojihara. But everything changed in the finals. Kuroko Tetsuya approached Akashi Sidro and expressed that he wanted to play, even if he was on the bench where he had been sitting for a long time. He was willing to play. This was the only game where he had to play. Akashi Shijiro agreed. But while playing ball, an accident happened. Chapter 146 Memories of Kuroko Tetsuya. Kuroko Tetsuya was injured and completely unable to play. There was no other way, so Kuroko Tetsuya had to be taken for treatment and missed the game with her friends. During the treatment, Kuroko Tetsuya said to Akashi Shijiro, "Akashi-san, I hope you will do your best." Akashi Shijiro asked expressionlessly, "Do you have to go all out even if the score gap is huge?" Kuroko Tetsuya nodded seriously. "Please." Akashi Shijiro stood up and said calmly, "I see." Kuroko Tetsuya felt relieved, but the course of the game has changed. The game continued into the fourth quarter, and Mingyu still scored 0 points. Antique's score has reached 160 points. Shiraiwa walked into Kuroko Tetsuya's ward and said, "Kuroko-kun, the fourth quarter has begun. There is no suspense about winning 3 consecutive championships." Kuroko Tetsuya got up and wanted to watch the game. Shiraiwa quickly helped Kuroko Tetsuya up to prevent Kuroko Tetsuya from being injured. "Watch your step." Kuroko Tetsuya stood up and looked at the game on the TV. After seeing the score, Kuroko Tetsuya's expression changed instantly. "Ow, how could this happen?" Yin turned his head and said, "Isn't that what you asked for? Tell us to do our best." Kuroko Tetsuya's pupils trembled, and the expression on his face became very painful. "I want to go see the scene." After saying that, Kuroko Tetsuya rushed to the court without stopping. Yin shook his head helplessly. "Akashi, as you guessed, Kuroko." Kuroko Tetsuya ran outside the court and looked towards the court. Everyone in Mingguang was breathing heavily, and their exhaustion was palpable. Ojihara Naruhiro said, "The game is not over yet. Don't give up." A player from Mingguang said, "What are you talking about? The result of the game is already obvious." Ajiwara Shigehiro's expression was slightly painful, and then he said firmly, "I know that kind of thing too, but it would be too unacceptable to end the game like this. If you're going to lose no matter what, then you have to score a goal at the last moment." Then, Ojihara Naruhiro raised his head and showed an extremely forced smile. "Then lift your chest and accept defeat." Kuroko Tetsuya looked at the field in pain. On the field, Ajiwara Shigehiro tried his best, but was completely unable to break through Aomine Daiki's defense. Aomine Daiki stretched out his hand and easily stole the basketball. "You are still too weak, but your spirit is worthy of praise. Let me reward you, the abyss of defeat." Aomine Daiki said expressionlessly, and then rushed to the front court alone, taking the lead and slamming the basketball into the basket. Mingyu completely fell to Teik's cavalry, becoming the only team in history to score 0 points in the finals. Teik won the finals with a score of 200-0. After the final whistle sounded, Ojihara Naruhiro stared at the score blankly and murmured dully, "The knot is over. Who didn't score a single point?" "Ajiwara-san." Ojihara Naruhiro's eyes were dull. He turned his head blankly and murmured, "Kuroko." After Kuroko Tetsuya saw this, his expression that had never changed for thousands of years finally changed. He opened his mouth wide and tried to make a sound, but found that he could not make a sound no matter what. Kuroko Tetsuya looked helplessly at the backs of everyone in Teik, feeling a twinge of pain in his heart. It's not just the reason why he hasn't been able to play, but also because of the agreement he made with his friends. When he thought of this, Kuroko Tetsuya felt a pain in his chest. He fell to his knees weakly, tears flowing down uncontrollably. After this game, Kuroko Tetsuya chose to quit the basketball club. At the same time, he also gave up his beloved basketball. It wasn't until she found Ojihara's school, met and talked with Ojihara's teammates, that Kuroko Tetsuya rekindled her fighting spirit. He decided he wants to challenge the age of miracles. After hearing this, Fang Jilai understood the reason for everything. So Kuroko Tetsuya did not decide to defeat them because everyone fell apart. Instead, he chose to defeat his friends by sitting on the bench and avenging them. Is this the will of the world? Forcibly correct the plot. Nijimura Shuzo fell into silence after hearing this, and then sighed. "I didn't expect that Akashi and the others would actually become like this." The light is too strong, and the shadows have no room to survive. But then again, Kuroko-san, is that red hair your new Hikari? Kuroko Tetsuya nodded. Kagami-san has the same talent as them. I believe in him. Hongsuin Shiozao thought for a while and said, yes, his talent is indeed quite good, but it is a bit weak now. I don't know if you have enough time to grow up. I don't know, it should be enough. Hongton Shizo waved his hand, skipped the topic, and said, by the way, I heard that you defeated the Age of Miracles. What's going on? Kuroko Tetsuya told what happened. Fang Jilai listened quietly, and after listening, he found that his guess was indeed correct. The current Kagami Taiga and Kuroko Tetsuya really can't beat Kai's Ryota. The reason why they won the practice match was because Kai's Ryota came on the field in the fourth quarter. Kai's Ryota's coach actually forced Kai's Ryota to the bench for 3 full quarters, even though the score was many points behind. Their coach was still unfazed and even extremely confident, feeling that Kai's Ryota could tie the score by 20 points in 5 minutes. As a result, Kai's Ryota lost the game by 2 points, which made Cage coach Jinikuchi furious. Fang Jilai was speechless. What is this? Protagonist Halo, hard confidence? But Fang Jilai had no choice. After all, he couldn't interfere with the will of other coaches. However, if Cage competes with Siren in the future, it may be difficult for Siren, because Jinta Takeuchi will definitely use all the main forces for revenge. I understand, As. Thank you for clarifying my doubts. Let's go have a meal together. Kuroko Tetsuya shook his head, looked at the sneaky Siren people behind him, and said with a smile, my teammates seem to be waiting for me. Fang Jilai tilted his head and saw the sneaky Chunglin crowd. Seeing this, Fang Jilai no longer wanted to stay, and left here alone with Niji Seiyuen Zizu and Satsuki Momoi. As for whether Kuroko Tetsuya will expose Fang Jilai's whereabouts, Fang Jilai is not worried at all. Judging from the behavior of everyone in Teikō towards Kuroko Tetsuya, it is impossible for Kuroko Tetsuya to contact them in a short time. So in the end, only Fang Jilai himself used the game to announce his return. Chapter 147, Rubik's Cube. Returns time flies, and Kurosaki No. 1's second qualifying match has arrived. It is worth mentioning that Kurosaki No. 1's War Zone qualifiers include the Age of Miracles competition, because in their theater competition, there is a competition between Cage High and T High School. There is also Siren, but Siren will definitely be slashed by T, so don't worry about it at all. The only 2 universities that compete with him are Cage High and T High School. Kurosaki Daiichi's second qualifying match. For this game, Fang Jilai personally led the team to the arena. After changing clothes, he walked to the court. Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi walked to the front, leading everyone from Kurosaki's No. 1 team into the arena. Fang Jilai thought that not many people would pay attention to the qualifying match. But when we arrived at the arena, we discovered that there were quite a lot of people, although there are not as many viewers as in the Teikō period and the Beautiful Country period. But in the qualifiers, these numbers are already considered to be a lot. In the audience, everyone started talking after seeing Kurosaki Daiichi enter the stage. It's Kurosaki No. 1, the previous king. If nothing else, Kurosaki will still be the first to qualify this year. I just don't know how far Kurosaki No. 1 can reach in the Summer Cup. The last one ended in the quarterfinals. I don't know. Wait a minute. Did Kurosaki Daiichi bring in new people? Why haven't I seen the leader? Some viewers noticed something was wrong, because they didn't know the person taking the lead from Kurosaki Daiichi. But some viewers felt a little familiar, as if they had seen it somewhere. Wait then, is that a Rubik's Cube? Suddenly, an audience member expressed his opinion. When he said this, more and more people who thought Fang Jilai looked familiar remembered him. Isn't this the Rubik's Cube? This is the Magic Cube. The one behind him is Shuzo Nijimura, Teikō's former captain. These 2 actually appeared. But the math is correct. The Age of Miracles has entered high school, and the 2 of them should also join high school. I just didn't expect that they actually joined Kurosaki Daiichi. Wait a minute. Let's go. Kurosaki became a candidate for the championship in an instant. Magic Cube, plus Captain Teikō and villain, What kind of magical lineup is this? Oh my god, I'm already looking forward to it. Is the first championship going to appear in our city? The originally uninterested audience instantly became excited. They saw the shadow of the championship. Fang Jilai and others didn't care about the noisy audience and went on stage to warm up with everyone from Kurosaki number 1. Naturally, Nijimura Shizo also came on the court to warm up. After all, he and Fang Jilai both had a play in this game. During the warm-up, Hong Senzozu couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that there would be viewers who knew us. I was really touched. Fang Jilai was ashamed, twitching the corner of his mouth, and said, "I'd rather they forget me, preferably my nickname completely." Nijimura Shizo immediately turned around and shot, suppressing his laughter. But his non-stick shooting shows that he wants to laugh. Fang Jilai didn't care. He hit a three-pointer and started fishing. After staying in the beautiful country for a long time, Fang Jilai really had no interest in such a competition. But in this game, Fang Jilai is ready to give it a good fight, preferably a good one. I feel pity for Xiangshan High School, which is playing against Fang Jilai. It was originally just a budget match, but due to bad luck, it could only become a stepping stone for Fang Jilai and the others. The warm-up ends quickly. Both sides are preparing to take the field. Jilai spoke before going on stage. Go all out, preferably with a clean sheet. The expressions of Hanamiya, Jun, and others changed. Then they licked their lips and nodded. Hongsu and Xiaozhao also smiled and observed a few seconds of silence for the people of Xiangshan. The Xiangshan players worked hard to cheer up before the game started. They were defeated by Kurosaki No one last time, and this time they wanted revenge. But when they saw Fang Jilai and Hongsu building it, they were stunned. In the end, he had no choice but to change his goal from defeating Kurosaki first to try not to lose too many points. Started the game. Kurosaki Daiichi's lineup. Point guard Makoto Hanamiya. Shooting guard Fang Jilai. Small forward Haizaki Shogo. Power forward Shizo Nijimura. And center Sito Kintaro. Sito Kintaro and Xiangshan center jump ball. Under the education of the trainer assigned by Fang Jilai, Sito Kintaro's jumping improved a lot compared to the original work. The jump ball was hit by Sito Kintaro. The ball fell into Hanamiya Ma's hands. Hanamon really did not hesitate and passed the basketball to Fang Jilai. Everyone in the audience started talking. Come on. I haven't seen the Rubik's Cube play in almost 2 years. Yes, I already want to die, Rubik's Cube. But then again, who is that small forward? Why haven't I seen it before? It seems a little familiar to me. It's probably an illusion. Forget it. Don't think about it so much. Just watch the Rubik's Cube competition. On the field, Fang Jilai didn't hesitate at all after receiving the pass. He didn't even bother to do any extra dribbling. He started to accelerate instantly and broke through the Xiangshan shooting guard like a wooden stub. Entering the basket, he ignored Xiangshan center. He jumped up suddenly, jumped over the defending Xiangshan center, and poured the basketball into the basket. A dunk over someone else. Xiangshan center froze on the spot, unable to react for a moment as to what was going on. He saw Fang Jilai in front of him jump up, and then jumped over him and pour the basketball into the basket. Going beyond oneself. Beyond. Less than a minute into the game, Xiangshan Center's mood seemed to have collapsed. Everyone in Xiangshan was stunned, and the audience present was also stunned. The Xiangshan Center is 1.98 meters tall, nearly 2 meters tall. But with such a height, he was actually dunked by Fang Jilai. This kind of visual impact is not ordinary. The audience didn't care that there were so many people. After being stunned for a while, they applauded passionately and shouted loudly. Rubik's Cube is awesome, but everyone in Xiangshan felt uncomfortable. Their fighting spirit seemed to have been shattered a little after just the first ball. Even the center on our own side has become unmotivated. The Xiangshan power forward saw that his coach had no intention of calling timeout, so he had no choice but to serve and start the attack. Xiangshan center followed the crowd and ran forward in a daze, his heart already in a state of confusion. As soon as the Xiangshan point guard passed the half court, Hanamiya Jun began to press up and give a sense of pressure. Sito Kintaro began to observe the situation on the court. Sudden, Sito Kintaro took a step forward. The Xiangshan point guard's passing movement froze, and then he changed the target and passed to the Xiangshan small forward. Snap! Chapter 148 Declaration of War. Hanamiya Jin instantly took action and cut off the basketball. Hongtsu didn't hesitate at all and rushed to the front court with full power. Everyone at Xiangshan University could only watch this scene, because it was too fast, so fast that they didn't even have time to react. Hanamiya seized the opportunity and made a long pass, which was passed steadily to the hands of Hongtsu and Shizuo. Nijimura's speed slowly slowed down after receiving the ball, and then he scored a layup in 3 steps. Dunk? No need. Retirement. Transition of possession. Xiangshan's point guard looked very ugly after passing the half court, because the target of passing the ball is completely restricted. When he was about to pass to the center, Teikō Kintaro stood in the path of the pass. When he changed his target and prepared to pass to the Xiangshan power forward, Nijimura Shizuo also stretched out his hand to compress the passing direction. Only the Xiangshan small forward position has not been compressed. Haizaki Shogo even left Xiangshan small forward and stood in the inside position. As for the Xiangshan shooting guard, I'm sorry, I haven't thought about it. Because as soon as the name Rubik's Cube came out, the shooting guard became weak. There was no other way, so the Xiangshan point guard had no choice but to pass the ball to the Xiangshan small forward. Snap! The basketball was once again blocked by Hanamiya Makoto. Haizaki Shogo rushed out this time. Nijimura Shizuo, who was just about to sprint, slowly stopped when he saw this, preparing to give this fast break opportunity to Haizaki Shogo. Hanamiya didn't hesitate, waved his hand, and the basketball flew high to the front court. Haizaki Shogo caught the basketball, took 2 steps, and then dunked. Collapse. The rim was once again devastated. Xiangshan's point guard suddenly went numb, because he felt as if he was trapped in a spider web, and all his thoughts were completely seen through. The corner of Hanamiya's mouth rose when he saw this. This is their interception skill, spiderweb. Originally, spiderweb in the original work was needed to irritate the opponent and make the opponent angry, so that it would be easy to expose one's passing ideas. And spiderweb was a collaboration between Hanamiya Makoto and Teikō Kintaro. Teikō Kintaro gives a sense of pressure and compresses the opponent's passing path, so Hanamiya Makoto, who knows his opponent well, passes the ball. But things are different now. There is more than just one Teikō Kintaro in the team to provide a sense of oppression. Others can also compress passing paths. Needless to say, Fang Jilai just stood there, making his opponents less afraid to attack. Haizaki Shogo has learned how the spiderweb works because he has trained with Hanamiya Makoto and others for several years. To be precise, he plundered the spiderweb. But because he and Hanamiya were really teammates, Hanamiya didn't feel the slightest pressure at all. So Haizaki Shogo became a link in the spiderweb. Hongtsu and Shizuo used his speed and golf intelligence developed by playing in the beautiful country. The opponent's passing path can be inferred to compress it. That is to say, the current number 1 Kurosaki is not a spiderweb composed of 2 people, but 5 people. It is a spiderweb composed of 5 people that can kill opponents. Transition of possession. After the Xiangshan point guard dribbled the ball, he discovered that the passing route was completely compressed. No one is in a position to catch the pass. The only one who can catch the ball is the Xiangshan shooting guard who is not being guarded. But his defender is Rubik's Cube. The Xiangshan point guard gritted his teeth and finally passed the ball to the Xiangshan shooting guard. As the saying goes, a dead Taoist friend will never die a poor Taoist. Sorry, you come to attack. Hanamiya Jun actually knows that the Xiangshan point guard will definitely pass the ball. But he didn't steal, because it is impossible for Xiangshan's shooting guard to break through Fang Jilai's defense. The Xiangshan shooting guard was stunned when he received the ball. Cold sweat broke out on his head, and he looked nervously at Fang Jilai, who was defending him. He felt that Fang Jilai was now a beast exuding black energy. Xiangshan's shooting guard's legs began to tremble unconsciously, and there was no movement for a moment. Fang Jilai shook his head helplessly, stretched out his arm, and stole the basketball. After the steal, Jilai didn't hesitate. Shift to 4th gear and charge forward with full power. He dunked the basketball into the basket before anyone could react. Collapse. Exploded. Completely exploded. The audience in the auditorium stood up and applauded and kept shouting Fang Jilai's nickname. Kurosaki Daiichi's momentum reached its highest level. The momentum of Shangshan High School has completely fallen to the bottom. As a result, all subsequent passes were intercepted by Hanamiya. Even if Hanamiya didn't intercept, there were still Sito, Kintaro, and Haizaki Shogo who intercepted. It can be said that none of the passes after Shangshan's point guard was passed to his teammates. He either plays it himself and gets intercepted by Hanamiya Makoto on the dribble, either pass the ball and be intercepted by Hanamiya and others in the middle. Halfway through the first quarter, the Shangshan point guard's mentality was gone. Just stop holding the ball and let others hold the ball. The same goes for everyone else. After getting the ball, they fell into a spiderweb. After the first quarter, the score reached an exaggerated 53-0, a clean sheet in one quarter. Shocking. While everyone was discussing the first quarter of the game, the second quarter began. In the second quarter, Kurosaki Daiichi didn't give any chance. Under the spider web that has been set up, no one in Shangshan can shoot the basketball. That's right, not even a shot. Without shooting, there's naturally no scoring. Kurosaki Daiichi's defensive pressure was completely overflowing. Passes were intercepted, singles were blocked, and the ball was lost. And even if you wanted to throw the ball casually, your thoughts were guessed. Do you want everyone in Shangshan to throw the ball from the backcourt? What is the difference between this and express delivery? As a result, Shangshan was once again blocked in the second quarter. The score reached an exaggerated 102-0. The appearance of this score completely ignited the arena. Even during the halftime break, the stadium was filled with heated discussions, and the number of onlookers began to grow more and more. Many viewers took out their mobile phones to share the news with their good brothers or sisters, and also asked them to come quickly and watch the game. As a result, the audience became more and more numerous, so that in the end the arena was completely full. A small qualifier completely turned into an atmosphere like the finals. Second half, Shangshan High School completely announced its surrender, and all the main players were dismissed, and the substitutes came on and went to jail. If it were normal, Fang Jilai might have dismissed all the main players and replaced them with substitutes. But there is no other way. Fang Jilai wants to use an earth-shattering game to declare war on everyone in the Age of Miracles. Therefore, he did not end up. Chapter 149, What do you do if you transfer me? Kurosaki was still the main force in the first and second half. With the performance of all the main players and the sacrifice of Shangshan Middle School, the whole game turned into Kurosaki No. 1's performance show and ordinary training. There is no intensity to speak of. Beep. The referee blew the final whistle. Players from both sides shook hands and left the field. Everyone at Shangshan High School was in a low mood. After shaking hands, they left the field dejectedly. Maybe after this game, the main players and substitute players of Shangshan High School may give up basketball. This game may cast a shadow on their lives. But what happened to Fang Jilai? You give up yours, and I play with mine, without any impact. Fang Jilai left the stadium with Kurosaki No. 1 people without looking back. But the audience in the stadium was still gasping, because the numbers on the scoreboard are too exaggerated. 223-0. The most exaggerated score difference in the entire high school league. Both the highest score and the lowest score were refreshed in this game. Some reporters are like sharks smelling blood, rushing towards the stadium like crazy. They all want to interview Fang Jilai and others and get frontline interview materials. But all of them were rejected by Fang Jilai. The reporters had no choice but to enter the stadium and take pictures of the scoring screen to publish exclusive news in the newspaper. Other side, in T High School, in the basketball club basketball hall, Aomine Daiki slapped the basketball with a firm gaze, then accelerated quickly into the paint and jumped high. His whole body was like a fully stretched bow, and then he exerted force with his right hand and slammed the basketball into the basket. Collapse. After dunking, Aomine Daiki raised his right hand and looked at it. He was holding a freshly baked basket in his hand. TCH, can't the quality of this basket be better? It's so boring. Aomine Daiki complained a lot, flicked his right hand, and threw the basket casually. The basket made a clanging sound as it landed in the silent arena. Aomine Daiki walked to the sidelines and took a sip of water and thought unconsciously, "It's been 2 years. I've been training continuously for 2 years just to defeat you one day. What about you? Has your strength improved?" Just when King Fang Daiki was still deep in thought, a man walked in. After seeing King Fang Daiki, he said tremblingly, "Sorry, Aomine-san. I want to disturb you for a moment." King Fang Daiki turned his head, saw the person clearly, and said, "Oh, it turns out to be Sakurai. What's the matter?" Sakurai Ryo cautiously said, "I'm sorry, Aomine-san. I seem to have heard about the person you mentioned." Aomine Daiki's pupils involuntarily dilated after hearing this. Wow. Aomine Daiki rushed in front of Sakurai Ryo in an instant, grabbed Sakurai Ryo's collar, and asked excitedly, "Really? Where is he?" Sakurai Ryo raised his hands, shaking them constantly, and said fearfully, "I'm sorry, Aomine-san. Can you?" After hearing this, Aomine Daiki noticed his actions. He quickly put down the hand holding Sakurai Ryo and apologized. "Sorry, I'm so excited." Sakurai Ryo breathed a sigh of relief and said quickly, "It's okay, Aomine-san. I just got news that he is very similar to the person you mentioned." Listen to the latest news. In the match between Kurosaki Daiichi and Xiangshan High School, Kurosaki Daiichi defeated Xiangshan High School with a score of 223-0. Among them, Kurosaki's #1 shooting guard is a player named Rubik's Cube. King Fang Daiki listened quietly. When he heard the score was 223-0, Aomine Daiki showed a surprised expression on his face. After hearing that Kurosaki's #1 shooting guard was Fang Jilai, the corners of Aomine Daiki's lips began to rise unconsciously. "Ha ha!" Aomine Daiki suddenly covered his forehead and started laughing to the sky, as if he was mentally ill. Sakurai Ryo even took 2 steps back unconsciously, feeling that Aomine Daiki in front of him suddenly became a little nervous. In fact, Aomine Daiki has always given Sakurai Ryo a very strange feeling. Aomine Daiki trains harder than everyone else in private, but when it came time for the competition, Aomine Daiki seemed to be wilted and had no interest at all. He even said, "The game is not as important as my training." Everyone expressed their incomprehension towards Aomine Daiki. Since Aomine Daiki has no interest in competing, why should he train hard? In this regard, King Fang Daiki said this, "Because there is someone I must defeat. The only person I want to defeat is him." Since then, Aomine Daiki has been labeled a weirdo by everyone in T. But there is no way. Aomine Daiki's strength is really terrifying. None of them could do anything against Aomine Daiki. The coach had no choice but to give Aomine Daiki the rights. As long as the game can be won, he can ignore Aomine Daiki's performance on the court. Back to the present. After King Fang Daiki heard the news about Fang Jilai, he immediately picked up his coat and rushed out. Prepare to make the overnight journey to Kurosaki to see his old friend for the first time. Of course, it wasn't just him who had this idea. Yangchuan University. Atsushi Murasakibara was eating potato chips while walking on the road to school with Tatsuya Himuro. Suddenly, a phone call came. After hearing this, Himuro Tatsuya reminded, "Done, your phone number." After hearing this, Atsushi Murasakibara clamped the bag of potato chips blankly and took out his mobile phone from his pocket. After seeing clearly that the caller was Aomine Daiki, Atsushi Murasakibara answered the phone in confusion. "Hey Kingsley, what's the matter?" Himuro Tatsuya stood aside and looked at Atsushi Murasakibara quietly. He witnessed with his own eyes that Atsushi Murasakibara's expression changed from stunned to shocked to surprised. Then he saw Atsushi Murasakibara rush out after hanging up the phone. Himuro Tatsuya saw this and quickly chased after him. "Hey Atsushi, what's wrong?" Atsushi Murasakibara laughed happily and kept repeating this sentence. "Fangkin is back. Fangkin is back." Himuro Tatsuya was stunned. He often heard the word Fangkin from Atsushi Murasakibara's mouth. According to Atsushi Murasakibara, Fangkin is the best basketball player he has ever seen. But I went to the beautiful country 2 years ago, and now I'm back. Done. Where are you going now? Himuro Tatsuya asked while running with Atsushi Murasakibara. Atsushi Murasakibara expressed excitedly. I'm going to Kurizaki #1 to find Fang's wife. Himuro Tatsuya was suddenly shocked. He went to Kurizaki to find Fang's relatives. Wouldn't that be? Himuro Tatsuya suddenly exclaimed. You want to transfer to another school? Atsushi Murasakibara said without hesitation. As long as Mr. Fang wants me to transfer to another school, I will transfer immediately. Himuro Tatsu was also confused. Damn, why did you transfer me? Chapter 150. Your hair seems to have been chewed by a dog. Rakuzen High. In an empty classroom, a boy with red hair was sitting alone at the table playing chess. Dong dong dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the classroom door. Enter. Click. The classroom door was pushed open, and a boy with gray hair slowly walked in. He looked at the back of the red-haired boy and said, Akashi, there is news about the person you are talking about. Akashi Shijiro's hand that raised the chess pieces suddenly froze. After being stunned, Akashi Shijiro placed the chess piece down and said, I see. Seeing this, Daiki Yankson slowly walked out of the classroom. The classroom once again returned to silence, with only the sound of chess pieces falling on the chessboard. Akashi Shijiro said to himself while playing chess, Jilai, let me see if you're the chess player or the chess piece. Shitoka High. Midorima Shintarō is shooting continuously. The basketball swishes hollowly into the basket. Teikō Kazunari stood under the basket to catch the ball entering the net, and then passed it to Midorima Shintarō. Xiaojun, your shooting percentage is so high. Why do you still have to shoot regularly every day? Midorima Shintarō was stunned for a moment when he caught the pass, but he quickly adjusted and shot the basketball. After the basketball entered the net, Midorima Shintarō said calmly, Teikō, there are people outside the world, and there is a sky outside the world. I must become stronger to ensure my victory. Teikō Kazunari spread his hands helplessly and said indifferently, Okay, you're right. Tap, tap, tap. Nakatani Rinliang walked in slowly, his expression very solemn. He looked at Midorima Shintarō, who was still shooting, and said, Midorima, please stop for a moment. Midorima Shintarō and Teikō Kazunari turned their heads and looked at the coach in confusion. Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and asked, What's the matter, coach? Nakatani Rinliang took the latest report sheet in his hand and said, According to the news that just came out, the game between Kurizaki #1 and Xiangshan had the most terrifying score difference in history. Speaking of this, Nakatani Rinliang suddenly paused and then said in a deep voice, 223-0. Teikō Kazunari and Midorima Shintarō's pupils shrank suddenly. Teikō Kazunari even exclaimed, Are you kidding me, coach? 223-0? Xiangshan didn't score a point. Nakatani Rinliang nodded seriously. Midorima Shintarō's expression became serious, and he asked, Coach, Kurizaki Daichi is Hanamiya's team, right? Midorima Shintarō remembers it. After all, Hanamiya was in junior high school before, but he guided his teammates to kill him at the beginning. That time, Midorima Shintarō did not follow Fang Jilai and others to seek revenge, because Midorima Shintarō feels that revenge must be taken on the court. So he has been inquiring about the true news of Huamon. Midorima Shintarō was a little surprised by the news, because Hanamiya Jun gave up hurting basketball and started playing serious basketball. Nakatani Jin nodded and replied, Kurizaki #1 is indeed the school where Hanamiya Makoto stays. Teikō Kazunari was even more confused. 223-0. Does such a score difference really exist? There probably wasn't such a point difference during the Teik era. The most exaggerated thing is 200-0, but that's Teik. Teik's 5 people at full strength. As for Kurizaki's #1, Hanamiya Makoto, the uncrowned 5 general, how could he achieve such a point difference? Midorima Shintarō frowned, and he couldn't understand why Kurizaki #1 could score such a point difference. As far as he knew, no one went to Kurizaki #1 in the Age of Miracles unless... Midorima Shintarō suddenly thought of something and immediately asked, Coach, is there a person called Rubik's Cube in Kurizaki Daichi? Nakatani Rin nodded and said, well, Magic Cube has indeed joined Kurosaki Daiichi and also brought your middle school captain, Nijimura Shuzo, with him to join Kurosaki Daiichi. Midorima Shintarō was shocked. Not only Jilai, but also senior Nijimura joined. Midorima Shintarō forced himself to calm down and spoke to the coach seriously. Coach, now we have to study Kurosaki Daiichi's playing style. He will be our biggest opponent in the game. Other side. After Fang Jilai and Kurosaki Daiichi had a meal, they returned home with Satsuki Momoi. After returning to Sakura Country, Satsuki Momoi stayed at Fang Jilai's house because he was studying at Kurosaki No. 1. Don't get me wrong, everyone, it's against the law. The next day, when Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi first arrived outside the school gate, they saw two familiar figures. Satsuki Momoi looked at the two figures and asked doubtfully, Lai, are those Ada and Murasakibara's classmates? Fang Jilai nodded with a smile. Yes. Alai. King Feng Dahoe rushed out and wanted to give Fang Jilai a big hug. But he was held back by Atsushi Murasakibara. Atsushi Murasakibara suddenly threw Aomine Daiki back and rushed out. Fang Kin. Atsushi Murasakibara suddenly picked up Fang Jilai, smiling like a child. After Aomine Daiki was thrown away, he stood upright and angrily said, Murasakibara, what are you doing? But Atsushi Murasakibara ignored Aomine Daiki at all. King Feng Dahoe, I don't know you. I only know my relative. Satsuki Momoi covered her mouth and smiled secretly, thinking to herself, Murasakibara still hasn't changed. Fang Jilai was a little uncomfortable being held by Atsushi Murasakibara. Yes, two grown men hugging each other outside the school gate. It's easy to imagine. And the students outside the school who were about to enter the school were already looking at Fang Jilai and Atsushi Murasakibara curiously. Some people were even talking to their friends next to them. When Fang Jilai saw this, he quickly spoke, Xiao Zi, please let go first. Atsushi Murasakibara obediently released Fang Jilai. Aomine, Murasakibara. Suddenly, a voice came out. Atsushi Murasakibara turned his head in confusion. After seeing the person clearly, he asked, Who are you? Haizaki Shogo was startled, and his expression became a little ferocious. He didn't expect that Atsushi Murasakibara even forgot about him. He turned to look at Aomine Daiki, wanted to see Aomine Daiki's reaction. Aomine Daiki recognized Haizaki Shogo and said calmly, Haizaki, why are you here? Atsushi Murasakibara asked blankly after hearing this. He's Haizaki? Why doesn't it feel like it? His hair seems to have been gnawed by a dog. After hearing this, Haizaki Shogo had a dark clue. Damn, your hair was chewed by a dog. Suddenly, a voice came from beside several people. Hey, Aomine Murasakibara, what a coincidence. Atsushi Murasakibara and Aomine Daiki turned their heads again and looked at the person. After seeing it clearly, the two of them exclaimed at the same time, Senior Nijimura. Hongsu and Shiozao smiled slightly. Long time no see, you two. Chapter 151 SH Tokov Siren at a restaurant near Kurosaki Daiichi. Fang Jilai and others sat in the box and started talking. In other words, all three of you have joined Kurosaki Daiichi. King Feng Dahoe asked with a dull look on his face and a little disbelief. Haizaki Shogo raised a proud smile and said proudly, Why? King Feng, are you scared? Of course, Aomine Daiki couldn't give in, so he immediately retorted, How can you be afraid? I wish you were stronger. This is also true. After Aomine Dahoe heard that several people were in the same school, he had no fear, only fighting spirit. There's also a little shock. Atsushi Murasakibara was eating the food and asked vaguely, Nuwa, dear Fang, are you guys using Kanine code? Fang Jilai looked a little confused and asked, What? Atsushi Murasakibara quickly swallowed the food and said blankly, Fang Kin, are you still missing someone? Do you need me to turn over? King Feng Dahoe's expression changed drastically, and he exclaimed, Murasakibara, are you going to turn around? Atsushi Murasakibara turned back, nodded blankly, and replied, I will be there whenever Mr. Fang needs you. Aomine Daiki's eyes were wide open, and his expression was very exciting. If Atsushi Murasakibara joins Kurosaki Daichi, then Kurosaki Daichi will really have no dead ends. Fang Jilai thought for a moment and finally asked, Xiaozi, are you sure you want to transfer here? You should have found a partner in your school. Atsushi Murasakibara thought about it carefully and found that Tatsuya Himuro seemed to treat him well. However, if I have to compare him with Fang Kin, I'm sorry, I don't know you. I don't know you. I'm not familiar with you. As long as you open your mouth, Mr. Fang, I will turn around immediately. Fang Jilai looked at Atsushi Murasakibara. In fact, Atsushi Murasakibara is indeed good, and he will indeed have better development if he comes to Kurosaki Daichi. Okay, you can, but if you come here, you must follow my rules. Atsushi Murasakibara kept nodding and said excitedly, Yeah, I will definitely do it. Aomine Daiki is already numb on the side. Grandma, Atsushi Murasakibara is now going to Kurosaki #1. How to fight this? Fang Jilai plus Atsushi Murasakibara plus Nijimura Shuzo plus Haizaki Shogo plus Hanamiya Shin. How to fight this? Only when they age of miracles unite can we fight. The problem is our center has gone away. Haizaki Shogo immediately noticed Aomine Daiki's expression. He smiled mysteriously and asked, What's wrong, King Feng? Are you scared? King Feng Dehui gritted his teeth and said harshly, Afraid? It's impossible. I wish you were together. It would be great to defeat you like this. After King Feng Dehui finished speaking, he was silent for a while and then asked in a low voice, Alai, do you still need someone? Fang Jilai, 6 in the following time, everyone chatted a lot. It's like being transported back to Teik's time. We talked like this until the afternoon. Because the transfer procedure to Sakura country takes a long time, Atsushi Murasakibara cannot come to Kurosaki Daichi in a short time. If it's earlier, it might be during the game against T. If it's later, it'll be during the Summer Cup. Fang Jilai is not in a hurry. Anyway, the current one Kurosaki cannot lose the game. After Fang Jilai personally witnessed Aomine Daiki and Atsushi Murasakibara get on the car home, he supervised Haizaki Shogo to change his hair. At least, gray hair definitely looks much better than this unconventional hairstyle. Haizaki Shogo, who was forced to change her hair, was on the verge of tears and did not dare to resist. Witnessing my hair being changed back. The trendy hairstyle is gone, and she has returned to a gray hairstyle. Time flies. Fang Jilai got up early that day and called Satsuki Momoi and Nijimura Shuzo to go to the match between Sirin and Shitoku. Fang Jilai wanted to see what kind of growth Midorima Shintarō had compared to the original work. When Fang Jilai and others rushed to the gym, they happened to see Zhongbang's first-year complaints. Why? Sirin is obviously a school established last year. We practice more. Last year, we were obviously no match for them. The ones who are the best. No matter what you think, we are the ones who are the best. Hongsu and Zaizu in the stand saw this scene and complained slightly. Is this person a loser? Is it difficult to admit the opponent if you can't defeat him? What kind of statement is this? The more you practice, the stronger you must be. So if I practice more than Jason and the others, I will still be abused. Fang Jilai twitched the corner of his mouth. He didn't hear anything else, but he could hear Hong Siyuan Shiozao's resentment towards Jason Shibuya. I can tell that Senior Nijimura has a lot of opinions about Jason. Nijimura Shuzo looked stunned, smiled hee-hee, and explained awkwardly. No, absolutely not. I definitely won't have a problem with Jason challenging me every day. Fang Jilai rolled his eyes at Hongsu and Zaizu and made a single 6. Find a seat and sit down. The second half will be between Shitoku and Sirin. Nijimura Shuzo nodded and followed Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi to find a seat and sit down. After sitting down, Hongsu and Zaizu looked at the scores on both sides and said, the score difference is a bit big. Kuroko's side was 73-71, so they almost lost. But Shitoku's side is 113-38. The gap is obvious. Satsuki Momoi looked at the people on both sides and said, the gap is indeed huge. The players on Shitoku's side are obviously much better than Sirin's members. However, the data of Sirin's red-haired one seems to be very good, at least better than ordinary people. Fang Jilai touched Satsuki Momoi's head and smiled. How about a guess? Which side will win? Satsuki Momoi thought for a while and finally gave the answer. Shitōku. Hongsun Shojin leaned back with his head in his hands and affirmed, no matter how you look at it, Shitōku wins. Midorima's three-pointer is very strong. Fang Jilai did not give the answer immediately, but looked at Shintaro Midorima on the field, thinking to himself, Little Green, can you break the halo of the protagonist? Time flew by, and it was soon time for the second half of the game. In Shitoku's lounge, Midorima Shintarō was sitting alone on the bench. His expression was calm, and he was thinking secretly in his heart. Kuroko and his new light Kagami, Jilai, and Senior Hongsuin. Suddenly, Midorima Shintarō closed his eyes. In order to beat you, I never slacked off on my shots a day, and I never slacked off in practice. The maintenance of your fingers is the same as usual. Today's divination shows that Cancer has the best fortune. I also collected lucky props and civic cat pottery. The laces are tied from the right side. Personnel matters have been exhausted. After waiting for a long time, the game is finally ready to start. In the stands, Fang Jilai watched Midorima Shintarō and others walking out and whispered, coming. Satsuki Momoi was so tired from waiting that she sat next to Fang Jilai and fell asleep with her head on Fang Jilai's shoulder. Nijimura slowly sat up straight and looked toward the field. Midorima Shintarō slowly walked out of the passage. After walking out, he first saw the three Fang Jilai in the stands. Are you really here? After seeing the three of them clearly, Midorima Shintarō's expression became particularly determined. He must let Fang Jilai know that he has not been standing still in the past few years. After the players from both teams warmed up, they gathered together to talk. After the conversation, a friendly pre-game ceremony was conducted and preparations for the game began. Hinata Junpei looked at the people in Shitoku and thought to himself, it's quieter than expected. Shintaro Midorima walked up to Kuroko Tetsuya and said, I didn't expect you guys to actually win here. But that's as far as it goes. No matter how weak or unknown the school is, the idea of fighting as long as everyone works together is just a wishful dream. Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and said calmly, Come on, let me tell you how stupid your idea is. Chapter 152. During the competition, Kuroko Tetsuya's expression remains unchanged, and so does his tone. No one knows whether the choices in life are correct. It's not a choice because of that. And one thing I want to refute is that Siren is definitely not weak. As he spoke, Kuroko Tetsuya's eyes were firm. Absolutely will not lose. Midorima Shintarō looked serious after hearing this. He turned around and said calmly, Then let me let you experience the taste of defeat. The main players of both sides are in place, ready to start the jump ball. Hongsun Shōzao in the stands raised the corners of his mouth and said, It's a beginning. On the field, Kagami Taiga and Taisuke Atsubo perform a jump ball. The referee threw the ball high into the sky. Kagami Taiga and Taisuke Atsubo took off at the same time. In the end, Kagami won the jump ball by a narrow margin. This shocked Taisuke Atsubo. You can jump so high. Siren gets the ball first. Maito Brinisuk didn't hesitate at all when he got the ball. Immediately passed the ball to Iuejun. After Iuejun caught the ball, he quickly started looking for his teammates. But when he saw that everyone in Shitoku had already taken a defensive position, Iuejun couldn't help but sigh. It's so fast. I originally wanted to open up the rhythm with a fast break, but I didn't expect the defensive speed to be so fast. However, Siren's offensive line has not disappeared yet. Shinsuke Kimura, who was guarding Kuroko Tetsuya, suddenly discovered that Kuroko Tetsuya disappeared from in front of him. Where are the people? When you come to your senses. Iuejun has already passed the ball. Kuroko Tetsuya instantly appeared in the path of the pass and slapped the basketball into the air. Kagami Taiga seized the opportunity, jumped high, grabbed the basketball, and prepared for an alley-oop dunk. When Taisuke Atsubo turned around, he realized that it was too late. Just when Siren and others were celebrating in advance, something unexpected happened. Midorima Shintarō jumped up suddenly and slapped Kagami Taiga's basketball away. Kagami Taiga was confused. How could? The basketball was caught by Takao Kazunari. Takao Kazunari, who caught the basketball, praised. As expected of Xiaojun. As he spoke, Takao Kazunari rushed towards the front court. After Midorima Shintarō landed, he continued, "You can't score if you have this level." Kimura Shinsuke immediately followed, forming a 2-on-1 situation in the front court. Takao Kazunari immediately passed the ball to Kimura Shinsuke. Kimura Shinsuke took 3 steps without hesitation to prepare for a layup. But Hinata Junpei touched him, and the basketball bounced out of the frame. Hongsun Xiaozao in the stands raised his forehead speechlessly and complained, "What kind of talent is Midorima's teammate? He can actually be blocked in 2-on-1 situations in the front court." Fang Jilai couldn't help but feel a little magical. He can actually get blocked in a 2-on-1 situation in the front court. Is he a fool? Forget it. Keep reading. Let's see if the protagonist Halo wins, or if Midorima Shintarō escapes from the Halo and wins. Offense and defense transition. This time Shitoka didn't give any chance and defended everyone tightly. But Siren is still the same, and Kuroko Tetsuya opened the situation. After Kagami Taiga caught the basketball, he was stunned when he saw that the person defending him turned into Shintaro Midorima. Shintaro Midorima opened his arms to defend Kagami Taiga and said calmly, "That's it." Kagami Taiga realized that he was being looked down upon, gritted his teeth, and started to attack fiercely. Midorima Shintarō didn't make any defensive mistakes and defended Kagami Taiga tightly. Midorima Shintarō seized the opportunity and stole Kagami Taiga's basketball with a slap. After the steal, Midorima Shintarō did not pass the ball, but rushed forward alone to prepare for a fast break. Siren's bench was stunned. Ida Reiko even exclaimed, "Does he have the ability to carry the ball?" Everyone in the cage viewing gallery was also stunned. Kasumatsu Yukio quickly asked Kai's Ryota, Hey, does he have the ability to dribble the ball?" Kai's Ryota broke out in a cold sweat unconsciously, and he said hesitantly, "I don't know, but what I'm sure of is that I've never seen Midorima play with the ball." Hongsun Xiaozao on the other side was also a little surprised. He smiled in surprise and said, "Midorima actually has the ability to hold the ball. It seems that he has not neglected training." Fang Jilai looked at the field quietly, without speaking or making any big moves, because Satsuki Momoi is still sleeping. On the field, Midorima Shintarō rushed forward with the ball alone. Kagami Taiga chased after him fiercely. Midorima Shintarō glanced at Kagami Taiga from the corner of his eye, then rushed outside the 3-point line and suddenly stopped and jumped up. Kagami Taiga braked quickly, but it was too late, and he could only witness Midorima Shintarō throwing the basketball. The basketball flew high above, drawing a huge parabola. The basketball flew until it almost reached the ceiling of the basketball stadium before it began to slowly fall. Hinata Junpei's expression was very serious, and he was already shocked in his heart. What kind of parabola is this? Everyone in Siren and the audience also had the same idea, because Midorima Shintarō's parabola is simply too outrageous. After finishing the shot, Midorima Shintarō looked at Kagami Taiga in front of him, who was still looking up at the ceiling, and said, "Be prepared to accept defeat. You are too weak." After saying that, Midorima Shintarō turned around without hesitation and slowly walked towards his front court. Kagami Taiga's face was ugly. He looked at Midorima Shintarō's back and then looked at the basketball that started to fall. "I kept witnessing the basketball swipe into my own basket. Hateful." The basketball goes into the back of the net. The audience once again made a commotion and started discussing nonstop. Transition of possession. Iwejun dribbled through the half. His eyes were constantly scanning the field. Takao Kazunari in front of him looked at him quietly, then smiled and said, "Are you still looking for the location of your teammates? How are you? Have you found them?" Iwejun ignored Takao Kazunari and just kept scanning the field. Finally, Kuroko Tetsuya disappeared again, and Itsuki-jun quickly passed the ball to Kuroko Tetsuya. Kuroko Tetsuya popped the basketball into Maito Brin's assistant. After Maito Brinasuk caught the ball, he hit him with his back and immediately turned around for a hook shot. Taisuke Atsubo jumped up suddenly and brushed the basketball with his middle finger. Maito Brinisuke's paralyzed expression changed slightly. He didn't expect that even his hooked hand could be rubbed. The basketball hit the basket with a bang and then entered the net with difficulty. Seeing this, Taisuke Atsubo shook his head helplessly. He had already touched the basketball, but the ball still went in. It can only be said that hooks are indeed difficult to block. But his mood didn't change at all. He served the ball to Teikō Kazunari again and ran towards the front court. With a faint smile on his face, Teikō Kazunari dribbled the ball unhurriedly through the half. Chapter 153 Counterattack. After dribbling the ball through the half, Teikō Kazunari pushed with both hands and passed the basketball to Midorima Shintarō's hands. Midorima Shintarō didn't hesitate at all, ignored Kagami Taiga's defense, and jumped up directly. What? Kagami Taiga didn't expect Midorima Shintarō to dare to jump directly, so he was stunned for a moment. By the time he reacted and jumped up to block the shot, it was already too late. Midorima Shintarō used his left hand to throw the basketball. The basketball flies in the air like an eagle spreading its wings. After landing, Midorima Shintarō turned around and left without any hesitation. When I left, I didn't forget to call Teikō Kazunari. Let's go to Teikō. Teikō Kazunari spread his hands and followed Midorima Shintarō to the backcourt. The basketball flew into the sky like an eagle and then rushed straight down as if it had locked its prey. He dove into the basket. After scoring the goal, the expressions of everyone in Chungrin became ugly. Ida Reiko's expression on the bench also began to change. How could this happen? Kagami can't defend Midorima at all. On the court, Kagami Taiga and Sirin all looked serious, but only Kuroko Tetsuya was calm as usual. Kuroko Tetsuya said to Kagami Taiga, "Next round, please run." Kagami Taiga ignored Kuroko Tetsuya's meaning for a moment, and his expression was still a little confused. Transition of possession. Itsuki Jun dribbled the ball across half court and immediately passed it to Kagami Taiga, who came to receive the ball. The moment Kagami Taiga caught the ball, Midorima Shintarō came to him and took a defensive posture. Kagami Taiga looked at Midorima Shintarō warily, and then suddenly broke through from the right. Nijimura Shuzo in the stands shook his head helplessly when he saw this. This idiot has not made any progress at all. His offensive methods are still so obvious. Fang Jilai, on the other hand, agreed very much, because Kagami Taiga's offensive methods are too obvious. At this stage, Kagami Taiga only has one method, forceful attack, and is not even good at shifting his focus. Projection has not been fully developed, and his strength is far behind Midorima Shintarō. Sirin's only chance of winning is to see how Kuroko Tetsuya cooperates and how the protagonist's aura exerts its power. On the field, Midorima Shintarō did not lose his position at all, sticking closely to Kagami Taiga. Kagami Taiga can't get inside at all. Hinata Junpei rushed out with the help of Itsuki Jun's pick and roll, raised his hands and shouted, "Here!" Kagami Taiga did not hesitate and threw the basketball to Hinata Junpei. Hinata Junpei catches and shoots. Teikō Kazunari tried his best to jump up, but there was not much effective defense. We can only bet that Hinata Junpei's shot will miss. But it's a pity that Hinata Junpei's shot was missed. After scoring, Hinata Junpei pumped his fist and shouted, "Nice!" Transition of possession. After Teikō Kazunari dribbled the ball through the half, he once again passed the basketball to Midorima Shintarō's hands. Midorima Shintarō caught the basketball with one hand, his expression as calm as water. After glancing at Kagami Taiga, he jumped up. Kagami Taiga was very unconvinced. This guy actually ignored me. He jumped up and tried to block Midorima Shintarō's shot. But after jumping up, he found out Midorima Shintarō's shooting point is too high. How can this guy be so tall? After shooting the basket, Midorima Shintarō turned around again and slowly returned to defense. Kagami Taiga stood there with an ugly expression. Suddenly, Kuroko Tetsuya said to him, "Please run." Kagami Taiga was stunned for a moment, then seemed to understand something and rushed directly to the front court. The basketball swipes into the basket. Kuroko Tetsuya immediately picked up the basketball and went out of bounds. Then he turned around twice and a half and threw the basketball violently. Midorima Shintarō seemed to have noticed something and immediately turned around. The moment he turned back, he saw the basketball speeding past his ear. Midorima Shintarō's pupils suddenly dilated. What? Kagami Taiga under the basket steadily caught the incoming basketball. With 2 steps together, he directly poured the basketball into the basket. The audience and members present were shocked. The audience even began to exclaim, "What's going on?" Passing the ball all over the field. Siren is starting to fight back. Hongsu and Xiaozhao in the stands also smiled and said, "Kuroko actually passed the ball like this. It seems like they're not standing still." Satsuki Momoi was slowly woken up by the noisy sound around her. She rubbed her eyes and looked at the field. After discovering that the game had started, she immediately exclaimed, has the game started yet? Lai, you didn't call me." Fang Jilai smiled hee and said, "Looking at you sleeping so soundly, I didn't wake you up." Satsuki Momoi pouted and murmured, "Humph, then I forgive you, but what just happened?" Fang Jilai briefly told Satsuki Momoi what had just happened. After hearing this, Satsuki Momoi thought for a while and said, "I see, but Siren still can't win. After all, Midorima-san's shot is a 3-pointer. Fang Jilai strongly agrees with Satsuki Momoi's words. After all, 3 points are always 1 more point than 2 points. This kind of play is not enough to win the game, but will boil the frog in warm water. On the field, Shintaro Midorima didn't seem to understand this. Maybe he was stunned by Kuroko Tetsuya's sudden counterattack. However, Shitoku is not only Shintaro Midorima's offensive ability. There are other members too. Takao Kazunari sneered after receiving the pass. "You don't think you can make a comeback, do you?" After saying that, Takao Kazunari began to break through with Yujun's confused expression. During the breakthrough, he suddenly passed the basketball from behind. This happened after several consecutive rounds. After watching a few rounds, Iwejun had some guesses in his mind, but he was not very sure. It wasn't until Nakatani Hitoshi called Takao Kazunari and Kimura Shinsuke to switch defenses that Itsuki Jun was sure. After confirming Kuroko Tetsuya's playing style, Nakatani Hitoshi immediately said, "Takao, Kimura, you change defense." As soon as these words came out, everyone in Siren became confused, because Kuroko Tetsuya is not something that ordinary people can defend. Even if the defense is switched, Kuroko Tetsuya may not be able to be defended. Kagami Taiga firmly believes in this. He looked at Midorima Shintarō and said calmly, "Switch defense? Kuroko is not that easy to defend." Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and said calmly, "You are still too naive." Midorima Shintarō also figured out that his own was 3 points, while Kuroko Tetsuya's and the others were 2 points. No matter how you calculate it, your score is high. So there is no need to change your playing style, because you must win the game by yourself. Chapter 154 Welcome Your Defeat. Although Siren and the others were very confused, they still had no intention of changing their style of play. After Izuki Jun dribbled the ball through the half, he immediately passed it to Kuroko Tetsuya's position. Kuroko Tetsuya's eyes constantly scanned the entire field, analyzing the best teammates' positions. After locking onto a teammate, Kuroko Tetsuya immediately swatted the basketball away. Snap! Snap! The sound of 2 basketballs was heard, and everyone in Chunglin on the court was shocked. Kuroko Tetsuya's expression also changed slightly. It turned out that Takao Kazunari intercepted Kuroko Tetsuya's pass. After cutting off the basketball, Takao Kazunari immediately threw the ball forward. Kiyoshi Miyagi, who ran forward, put the basketball into the basket without any hesitation. Hinata Junpei looked at this scene in shock and murmured, "How come Kuroko's pass?" Iwejun even exclaimed, "Sure enough, it's true." Hinata Junpei immediately asked, "It's Suki. What are you talking about?" Iwejun looked at Takao Kazunari with a stern expression and said in a deep voice, "He also has the same eyes as me." "No, his eyes are stronger than mine. He has eagle eyes. and his field of vision is wider than mine. His eyes can observe the situation of the whole scene. In other words, Kuroko Tetsuya's sight induction invalid. On the field, as Kuroko Tetsuya was blocked by Teikō Kazunari, the game once became one-sided. Midorima Shintarō's three-pointer made Siren and the others unable to resist. In this way, it came to the last moment of the second quarter. Everyone in Siren stood at their positions and prepared for the attack. Shintarō Midorima caught the pass from Taisuke Atsubo, looked at Fang Jilai on the stage, and thought to himself, "Show you my growth." Midorima Shintarō stopped dribbling, put his hands together with the ball, and made a shooting gesture. Everyone in Chungrin trembled in their hearts when they saw this scene. Kagami Taiga murmured, Hey, what does he want to do? How many meters away from the basket is there?" Hinata Junpei felt even more unbelievable. "Are you kidding me? It's impossible to hit the shot there." Kuroko Tetsuya's expression also changed, and his eyes became serious. Under the shocked eyes of the entire audience and everyone in Siren, Midorima Shintarō jumped up. He jumped high, exerted force with his left hand, and the basketball flew high into the sky. Then he fell into the basket at the midfield buzzer. After Hinata Junpei saw the goal, his heart was already in turmoil. So that's what the sense of violation is. His shooting range is not three-point range at all, but it is the whole court. Damn it. If this continues, the score won't be too different, but the fighting spirit may be gone. Halftime ended. Fang Jilai in the stands looked at the score on the court. 48-27. Not surprisingly, Shitoku will win the game, because Fang Jilai felt that Midorima Shintarō was hiding something else. What Midorima Shintarō is showing now is inconsistent with what he actually has. Fang Jilai was very sure that Midorima Shintarō must be hiding something. The intermission ended quickly. The game continues to start. As soon as Shitoku opened the game, Midorima Shintarō began to catch the ball and exert force. Frequently scored 3 points. As another three-pointer hit the net, some of the audience had already left the field. Midorima Shintarō was not surprised at all, because Siren was not a target at all in his eyes. He has only one goal. Fang Jilai. Sudden, a familiar breath came from Kagami Taiga's body. Even if it doesn't condense into reality, it does exist. Midorima Shintarō suddenly turned his head and looked at Kagami Taiga, thinking silently. Hasn't this guy given up yet? Also this aura. Kagami Taiga stood there with an extremely excited expression. So strong. This is Midorima. I'm getting more and more excited. In the stands, Nijimura Shuzo's expression changed. He stared at Kagami Taiga and said with a smile, "Sure enough, if I was still a little doubtful before, I am sure now. That guy must have wild nature." Fang Jilai nodded slightly when he saw this and said calmly, "Indeed, but Xiao Lu didn't disappoint me either. I already know what Xiao Lu is hiding." Hongtsun Xiaozhao was stunned and asked blankly, "What is Midorima hiding?" Fang Jilai smiled slightly and gave it up. "You'll know later." On the field, Midorima Shintarō once again held the ball and jumped up without any hesitation, facing Kagami Taiga's defense. Kagami Taiga looked at Midorima Shintarō's shot. His expression became very determined. "I've been thinking about what I would do if I encountered an opponent who was blocked by Kuroko. Now I know. I want to become stronger. I don't want to lose." Kagami Taiga jumped up suddenly, and his height actually matched Midorima Shintarō. Midorima Shintarō couldn't help but feel a little ridiculous. How could it be possible? This jumping ability. Kai's Ryota in the stands looked excited and was shocked. Now I'm sure that guy has the same talent as us. His talent is his natural jumping ability. On the field, Kagami Taiga jumped up and roared. "Ah!" He struggled to straighten his arm, and his fingers actually brushed Midorima Shintarō's basketball. Midorima Shintarō's basketball hit the basket, bounced twice, and still entered the basket. Taisuke Atsubo murmured in disbelief. "It's so dangerous. This is the first time I've seen Midorima shoot like this." Teikō Kazunari looked at Kagami Taiga and murmured, "What's going on with this bouncing power?" Offense and defense transition. After Kagami Taiga received the ball this time, he used Maito Brinasuk's pick and roll to rush to the basket. Facing Taisuke Atsubo's defense, Kagami Taiga jumped up high and poured the basketball into the basket in front of Taisuke Atsubo's shocked eyes. Collapse. Taisuke Atsubo looked at this scene in shock. No matter how you look at it, something doesn't feel right. What's going on with this kind of jumping ability that far exceeds that of high school students? After the goal, the fighting spirit of everyone in Sirin gradually improved. Except for Kagami Taiga, the other 4 people began to return to defense. According to the original work, this is when Sirin blows the horn. However, what is different from the original work is that Midorima Shintarō is extremely calm. Shintaro Midorima pushed up his glasses and took the pass from Taisuke Atsubo. Dong dong dong. Shintaro Midorima slapped the basketball and looked at Kagami Taiga calmly. Is this your response? Kagami Taiga gritted his teeth and looked at Midorima Shintarō with a look of unwillingness to give up. Midorima Shintarō closed his eyes and murmured, "I understand, but it's just a useless struggle." After saying that, Midorima Shintarō suddenly opened his eyes. His green eyes became sharp. Welcome your defeat. Chapter 155. This ball will accelerate. Midorima Shintarō's eyes are as sharp as a falcon's, staring at Kagami Taiga straight up. Next second, Midorima Shintarō directly hit the ball on the spot and jumped up under his own basket. Kagami Taiga immediately came to his senses and jumped up. Don't even think about it. Kagami Taiga jumped up and hit hard to find out. Midorima Shintarō jumped higher. How could it be? Didn't you use all your strength before? Midorima Shintarō pushed with his left hand, and the basketball flew into the sky with a whoosh. Hinata Junpei's expression was ugly, and his heart was full of shock. Damn it, I didn't use all my strength before. Is this the age of miracles? After Midorima Shintarō landed, he spoke without mercy. If it was only at this level, I really can't imagine the possibility of losing. Kagami Taiga gritted his teeth tightly. The current self cannot stop Midorima Shintarō at all. Could it be? Are we really going to lose? Brush. The basketball entered the basket steadily. In the stands, the corners of Fang Jilai's mouth began to rise unconsciously. Midorima, it seems you have broken the halo. Compared to Kagami Taiga, whom he didn't know, Fang Jilai naturally hoped that Midorima Shintarō would win. It's just that Fang Jilai is really confused about this protagonist's aura. But now it seems that the protagonist's halo has been broken by Midorima Shintarō. On the field, Kagami Taiga kept breathing heavily, and the feeling of being about to lose made him anxious. So in the next round, there was no sound from Kagami Taiga's teammates. One person takes the ball and rushes forward. Upon seeing this, Hinata Junpei immediately shouted, "Kagami, too urgent." But Kagami Taiga acted as if he didn't hear anything and rushed out alone. Midorima Shintarō immediately followed Kagami Taiga and taunted, "Do you think you are Jilai? Can you fight 5 by yourself?" Just when Kagami Taiga was still confused, the basketball in his hand was suddenly slapped down. What? Kagami Taiga looked behind him in surprise. I saw Teikō Kazunari taking the basketball down and laughing. What a hot-blooded boy he is. After the steal, Midorima Shintarō immediately picked up the basketball and jumped up at half court. Hateful. Kagami Taiga jumped up high next to Midorima Shintarō, but there is still some gap between the position of basketball. However, this jump made Midorima Shintarō feel a little surprised. You can actually jump higher. Your talent is so strong. Brush. The basketball enters the basket steadily. Ida Reiko saw something was wrong and immediately called a timeout. Both sides end. Midorima Shintarō looked at Kagami Taiga quietly, not knowing what he was thinking. After Kagami Taiga sat down, he said something unconvinced. Hateful. Iwejun immediately replied after wiping off his sweat. Kagami, you are too anxious. Look around more. Hinata Junpei also said after taking a sip of water. Yes, and the one just now shouldn't attack right away. He should pass the ball first. Hinata Junpei was interrupted by Kagami Taiga before he finished speaking. So what if it's sent back? Now I'm the only one who can compete with Shitoku. What is needed now is not teamwork, but me scoring. Kagane Shinji immediately retorted. What the hell? Isn't it the same as being self-centered? Seeing Kagami Taiga's appearance, Kuroko Tetsuya stepped forward and punched Kagami Taiga in the face. This scene shocked everyone in Siren. Of course, it's not just Siren and everyone, but also Shitoka's people. Takao Kazunari took a sip of water and murmured, Hey, is this an internal fight? Taisuke Atsubo said, It should be. After all, it's easy to disagree in this situation. Midorima Shintarō looked at the opposite side quietly, feeling very unhappy for a long time. Is this the light you chose? Kuroko, in the stands. Eat melon at the Hongsuin construction site. Oh, Kuroko-san actually still fights? It seems that Kuroko also learned bad things after we left. Satsuki Momoi doesn't think so. No, I feel like there must be a disagreement. The red-haired classmate just now seemed to have started playing singles. If I remember correctly, Kuroko-san has always believed in team basketball. The two may have a disagreement because of this. Hongsuin Shiozao said doubtfully, Yeah. Fang Jilai nodded and affirmed, What you said is right, because Kagami has calmed down now. After hearing this, Nijimura Shuzo looked towards the field. At this time, Kagami Taiga on the court had calmed down. Kuroko Tetsuya also returned to the game. When Takao Kazunari saw Kuroko Tetsuya come on the court, he immediately stood beside him and said, Here you go, but what are you using to evade my eagle eye? I can see you more clearly now than I did in the first half. Kuroko Tetsuya's face was expressionless, showing no intention of speaking. Chungren has the ball. After Kagami Taiga received the basketball, he rushed inside. Midorima Shintarō followed Kagami Taiga closely. Seeing this, Kagami Taiga immediately passed the basketball to Itsuki Jun. Then he walked around Maito Rinasuk. Maito Rinasuk took advantage of the situation and made a pick and roll, blocking Midorima Shintarō. Upon seeing this, Midorima Shintarō immediately shouted, Take up defense. Taisuke Atsubo immediately made up the defense. On the other side, Hinata Junpei also knew Kuroko Tetsuya's plan. Takao Kazunari's eagle eye can indeed see the entire field of view. So even if your consciousness is attracted to others, you can always keep Kuroko Tetsuya in your field of vision. Therefore, Kuroko Tetsuya uses the opposite gaze induction before he transfers his consciousness to someone else. That is to say, focus on yourself. Even if you're constantly being intercepted, you have to keep passing the ball, just to let the high tail and achievements focus on themselves. If it is within the narrowed range, you can divert the opponent's attention. Takao Kazunari was startled. Disappeared. How is that possible? Kuroko Tetsuya instantly ran into the passing path of Itsuki Jun and Kagami Taiga. Takao and Chung also quickly calmed down. It's okay. Although Kuroko has disappeared, Kagami is still there. As long as he intercepts Kagami's passing path, it will be fine. Thinking of this, Takao Kazunari rushed to Kagami's position instantly. Kuroko Tetsuya saw this and said, You won't succeed this time. So far, you have only changed the trajectory of the ball. But a pass speeds it up. Chapter 156 Midorima's Sky. Kuroko Tetsuya pushed hard at the flying basketball. Collapse. The basketball flew past Takao Kazunari's palm in an instant. Wow. The basketball flew into Kagami Taiga's hands. Takao Kazunari looked at this scene dumbfounded, and his heart was filled with shock. Actually, I knocked the basketball away. Kagami Taiga caught the basketball and jumped high. Taisuke Atsubo defended himself seriously and shouted, I won't let you score. Then Taisuke Atsubo jumped up high to intercept. But after jumping up, he was confused, because in his eyes, Kagami Taiga is still rising, but he has already begun to decline. What kind of jumping power is this? I obviously took off from behind. But why? Why are you still in the sky after I fell? Collapse. Kagami Taiga dunked the basketball into the basket through Taisuke Atsubo. Chungren and everyone were overjoyed. Very good. After this dunk, everyone in Siren gradually regained their fighting spirit. On the contrary, Shitoku was a little stunned by this shot. Kagami Taiga did not return to defense after scoring, but stood next to Midorima Shintarō. Midorima Shintarō did not stand still, but slowly walked toward the front. While walking, Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses. "Kuroko, haven't you given up yet? Don't you know that as long as I don't fall, you have no hope of winning?" As soon as he passed the front court, Hinata Junpei rushed up and teamed up with Kagami Taiga to double-team Midorima Shintarō. They didn't intend to let Midorima score any more points. Midorima Shintarō glanced at the two of them calmly. Then he suddenly rushed out from the left and said, "Tall tail ball." Upon seeing this, Takao Kazunari immediately passed the basketball to Midorima Shintarō. Midorima Shintarō stood at the top of the left arc to catch the ball, holding the basketball and looking at the two people waiting in front of him. He said, "Are you happy?" Kagami Taiga was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "Definitely. After all, we haven't been completely defeated yet." Hinata Junpei is even more direct. "Of course I'm very happy, because you can't keep your shooting posture stable when defended by two people." Midorima Shintarō said calmly, "Really? It seems that the hope Kuroko gave you has given you confidence again. In that case, let me crush your hopes completely." Hinata Junpei and Kagami Taiga's expressions changed one after another, and they immediately pressed forward. Try to compress Midorima Shintarō's shooting space as much as possible. Midorima Shintarō didn't care and raised the basketball high to prevent it from being stolen. Then he squatted down quickly and jumped up quickly. Kagami Taiga and Hinata Junpei jumped up immediately when they saw this. Kagami Taiga even more excitedly said, "Midorima, you are careless after all." Hinata Junpei gritted his teeth and jumped as high as possible. "You can't jump higher than Kagami without enough energy." Midorima Shintarō said calmly, "Yeah." Then, Kagami Taiga's excited expression instantly solidified and turned into panic. "No, impossible." Hinata Junpei opened his eyes wide, as if he saw something terrifying, getting further and further. The two of them watched in stunned silence as Midorima Shintarō got farther and farther away from them, and then threw the basketball. Nijimura Shuzo in the stands exclaimed, "Heaven!" Shintaro Midorima actually learned heaven. Now Siren has no hope at all. I really can't think of anyone in Siren who can risk Shintaro Midorima's. Satsuki Momoi nodded and affirmed, "Yes, once Midorima-san's heaven comes out, the victory is basically sealed." Fang Jilai had a slight smile on his face and murmured, "Is this the growth you show us?" Xiaolu. Clearly, Midorima Shintarō succeeded. He did give Fang Jilai a little surprise. In the original work, Shintaro Midorima would have been unsolvable if he had mastered the fadeaway jump shot earlier. But he never developed it. But here, Midorima Shintarō developed it. A real offensive tool has been developed. On the field, the basketball flew high and finally fell straight into the basket. The field fell into silence once again. Kagami Taiga and Hinata Junpei stood there for a long time without moving. The fighting spirit that was just ignited by Siren and everyone was instantly extinguished. Midorima Shintarō even said bluntly after landing, "See, this is what broken hope looks like." He turned to look at Kuroko Tetsuya and said as if arguing, "There's nothing wrong with what I said. What you did by joining Siren was completely wrong." After saying that, Midorima Shintarō turned around and walked directly to his backcourt. Takao and Chung stared blankly at this scene. After coming back to their senses, they spread their hands and said helplessly, "It has to be Xiaojun." While speaking, Takao Kazunari looked at Kuroko Tetsuya and continued, "Look, your failure is already doomed. Give up as soon as possible." After saying that, Takao Kazunari turned around and returned to defense. Seeing this scene, Ida Reiko called a pause again. After the game, Ida Reiko just wanted to cheer everyone up. Suddenly, Kagami Taiga laughed. Siren and everyone looked at Kagami Taiga in confusion. Kagami Taiga couldn't stop smiling. Seeing everyone looking at him, he quickly explained, "I'm sorry, Midorima is just too strong. I'm too excited." Kagane Shinji looked at this scene worriedly and murmured, Kagami, we are all going to lose, but you can still be so optimistic? Kagami Taiga smiled. It doesn't matter if you lose. Basketball is everything except winning. Besides, this is not yet a desperate situation. As long as the game does not reach the last second, we still have hope of a comeback. Kuroko Tetsuya's calm eyes suddenly fluctuated. Hinata Junpei also smiled helplessly and said, "Yeah, it's not over yet. Come on, show your energy." Everyone in Chungrin smiled when they saw this, and they all laughed and said, "Yes." Shitoka became very relaxed here. Midorima Shintarō looked at Siren's restored fighting spirit and closed his eyes. Have you not given up at this point? It seems that you are not completely a failure. At this point, Midorima Shintarō has already approved Kuroko Tetsuya's choice. After all, there are very few teams that have not given up the game to this point. Of course, I just approved Kuroko Tetsuya's choice. As for Kagami Taiga, sorry, it's still too weak. In the stands, Kai's Ryota looked at Siren's position with a smile and thought to himself, "Little Kuroko, your choice seems to be right." Chapter 157 the game is about to begin. Fang Jilai also saw this scene, but didn't think much about it. It can only be said that Siren's resilience is relatively strong, but if you lose, you will definitely lose. From the moment Midorima Shintarō used a fadeaway jumper, Siren had completely fallen into the abyss. There were indeed no surprises in the subsequent games. Siren can't guard against Midorima Shintarō at all. He was completely shot off his horse by Midorima Shintarō. Shitoka defeated Siren 108 to 64. Siren also had half a foot in the door of being eliminated. As long as they lose one more game, they will completely miss the Summer Cup. And their next opponent is Off the field, Midorima Shintarō stood at the gate of the arena, waiting for something. Tap, tap, tap. After hearing the footsteps, Midorima Shintarō said, "Coming." Certainly, Midorima Shintarō turned around and looked at the three people in front of him. After seeing Fang Jilai, Midorima Shintarō's calm eyes visibly fluctuated. All the emotions finally turned into just one sentence. "Long time no see, Jilai." Fang Jilai held Satsuki Momoi's hand and smiled lightly. "Long time no see, Xiaolu." Hey, why? I'm such an old senior, can't you see me?" Nijimura Shuzo muttered with his arms crossed in displeasure. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with his junior disciple's behavior of ignoring him. Midorima Shintarō turned his head and said, "Long time no see, Senior Nijimura." Hong Tsuin Shiozao's expression changed immediately after hearing this. With a smile on his face, he hooked his arms around Shintarō Midorima's neck. "Hey, Midorima, I haven't seen you in a few years. You've grown up so much. The sky has been used." Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and said calmly, "I have done my best in human affairs, and everything is a destiny." Hong Tsuzu twitched the corner of his mouth and complained in his heart, "Even the attributes of the magic stick have grown." Midorima Shintarō looked at Fang Jilai and finally said, "Jirai, your next match will be against Cage." Fang Jilai nodded with a smile and asked, "Why? Are you worried that I will lose?" Midorima Shintarō shook his head. "Don't worry, it's impossible for Kais to defeat you. I just don't know how much Kais can force out of you in the next game." Fang Jilai smiled softly and said, "The next round is not between me and Kais, and I am not the one who really wants to compete with Kais." Midorima Shintarō was stunned, looked at Nijimura Shuzo, and said, "Does Nijimura-senpai want to compete with Kais?" Hong Tsuin Shiozao touched his head and said nonchalantly, "Actually, I really want to compete with the Kais you mentioned, but unfortunately, the next game won't be my turn with him." Midorima Shintarō was even more confused now. Isn't it true that Kurosaki Daichi only had Fang Jilai and Nijimura Shuzo join in this time? Could it be that Hanamiya is really competing with Kais, but there is no conflict between them? Midorima Shintarō thought about it for a long time, but couldn't figure it out, so he simply gave up. Anyway, the game will be played soon, and you will know when you go there and take a look. In that case, let's see you in the Summer Cup. After saying that, Midorima Shintarō turned and left. Nijimura Shuzo looked at Midorima Shintarō's back as he walked out, and couldn't help but murmured What an arrogant junior student. Satsuki Momoi smiled sweetly and said, yes, Midorima-kun is obviously a sharp-tongued person. After hearing this, Hongsu and Shizuo immediately complained. That's right, at least it's not like Zack. That guy is completely arrogant. Fang Jilai smiled slightly and said, who told Senior Hongsu to force him to turn on his phone and play one-on-one with you every day while he was sleeping? Hongsu and Xiaozhao recalled the bad things and said angrily, that guy said that I could come to him whenever I had time. He also said that he would leave me alone, but he beat me harder than anyone else. Fang Jilai spread his hands helplessly. Let's go. We still have 2 games to play. Time flies. In a blink of an eye, it was time for the match between Haizaki Daichi and Cage High. This time the audience came in large numbers. Many spectators are fans of Rubik's Cube Fang Jilai and want to see the Rubik's Cube play. The audience here is not just fans, but also players from other teams. First up is Shitoka High. All members of Shitoka High, including the coach, came to the stands. Under Shintarō Midorima's strong request, Shitoka High regarded Haizaki as its #1 rival. Next is T High School, because he was told by Aomine Daiki that Fang Jilai had joined Haizaki Daichi. Everyone in T is full of curiosity about this powerful enemy who is about to fight. When Imayoshi Sho looked at the dense crowd of spectators around him, he couldn't help but say, there are so many viewers. Are they all attracted by the Rubik's Cube? Aomine Daiki nodded expressionlessly. Well, after all, Alai's strength is better than ours. Wakamatsu Kosuke couldn't help but feel a little confused. Is he still stronger than you now? King Feng Dehoe took out a breath and said in a deep voice, with his talent, it is impossible to stand still. Moreover, even if he stops moving forward, I can only be tied with him in the first year of junior high school now, not even a tie, because I'm not sure whether that one-on-one challenge was his true strength. Everyone in T swallowed their saliva after hearing this. Wakamatsu Kosuke found it even more incredible. No, it can't be. You can't beat him now, even when you were in junior high school. Then how strong is he? Imayoshi Shoichi's expression also became serious. According to what Aomine said, Cage may not be able to force out the true strength of the Rubik's Cube. Aomine Dahoe suddenly laughed, haha. Can Kai's bring out Alai's true strength? Don't be ridiculous. He might not even be able to bring out Nijimura-senpai's strength. Watch the game carefully. Only we can experience the real competition in person. Everyone in T looked seriously and looked at the stadium. On the other side, Siren and others also came to the stands. Hinata Junpei looked around and said in surprise, it's hard to imagine that this is just a qualifying match. Kagane Shinji nodded and said, yes, this audience is comparable to the finals. Ida Reiko was on the side with an extremely serious expression. This also shows in disguise the reputation and strength of the Rubik's Cube. Kagami Taiga looked at the surrounding environment, then turned around and asked, Kuroko, which side do you think will win? Siren and everyone also looked at Kuroko Tetsuya curiously. Kuroko Tetsuya said without any hesitation in the curious eyes of everyone, Haizaki is #1. Chapter 158, Haizaki Daichi versus Cage High. Why? Kai's is also very strong. Kagami Taiga asked confused. Kuroko Tetsuya looked at Kagami Taiga and said, Kagami-kun is such an idiot. Kagami Taiga was unconvinced and said, no way. Kuroko Tetsuya ignored Kagami Taiga and continued, Kagami-kun may have heard of Jilai-san's name, but he has never seen Jilai play ball. But I still have to tell you, it's impossible for Kai's to defeat Jilai. Kagami Taiga still wanted to struggle and continued to ask, is he really that strong? Kai's has no chance of winning at all. Kuroko Tetsuya thought about it carefully and finally said, the winning rate is 0. Siren and everyone swallowed together. Although I have heard the nickname, Rubik's Cube, but since they had never actually seen a Rubik's Cube play, they still had a little doubt. Because Kai's Ryota and the others have seen him before, his strength is very strong. However, in the words of Kuroko Tetsuya, Kai's Ryota has a 0 winning rate. This made everyone in Siren feel a little dreamy. Ida Reiko said in a deep voice, "Watch this game carefully. Kirizaki, no. One will be our strong enemy in the future." Chung Rin and everyone shouted, "Yes." The audience came in one after another and took their seats. Cage entered the scene first. The spectators began to exclaim when they saw the players entering the field. Coming, it's Cage." Everyone in Siren focused their attention after seeing the players entering the stadium. On the field, the expressions of everyone in Cage were very serious, including Ryota Kai's. Kai's Ryota grew up listening to the experience of Rubik's Cube. Except for himself, everyone in the Age of Miracles regards Fang Jilai as an opponent to defeat. This shows how strong it is. Therefore, Kai's Ryota did not dare to be careless in this game. Once he was careless, the game might develop in an uncontrollable direction. Here it comes. It's Kirisaki's number one. Suddenly an audience member exclaimed. Then came the unanimous shouts of many spectators. "Rubik's Cube! Rubik's Cube! Rubik's Cube! Fang Jilai, I love you. I want to give you a baby." The audience's enthusiasm seemed to be on fire. This made everyone in Siren and other teams feel incredible. Hinata Junpei even said, Hey, didn't he disappear for 2 years? Why do he still have so many fans?" Siren's others thought the same way. A person who disappeared for 2 years has such a huge number of fans when he comes back, which shows how famous he is. Everyone in Shitoko also found it a bit ridiculous. Takao Kazunari said, "Xiao Lu, who is this friend of yours? He has been absent for 2 years, but his reputation is greater than yours." Midorima Shintarō pushed up his glasses and said calmly, "I don't know, but this is indeed in line with Jilai's strength." On T's side, although there was no exclamation, but you can tell from their serious expressions, their hearts are not at peace either. Aomine Daiki stared in the direction of Kirizaki Daichi and murmured in his heart, "Alai." The team in the stands shared this sentiment, and Cage's sentiment on the field was even more so. Moriyama Yutaka asked, "Kai's, what is the origin of that Rubik's Cube? Didn't he disappear for 2 years? How come there are such huge fans?" Kai's Ryota's expression was extremely serious. "I don't know either. To be honest, I haven't even met the Rubik's Cube. I haven't even met the captain of the first grade of junior high school, Hong Siwen Z, because they all left in the first half of the first year of junior high school, and I only joined in the second year of junior high school." Indeed, Kai's Ryota only joined the basketball club in the second year of junior high school. At that time, Fang Jilai and Hongsun Zizu had already left Sakura country. The names of the two people were also mentioned by others in The Age of Miracles. Kai's Ryota himself doesn't know the true strength. However, the person who can make Aomine Daiki not get a single point cannot be a weak person. Everyone looked in the direction of Kirizaki Daichi. Everyone from Kirizaki number 1 slowly walked into the venue. At the head are Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi, followed by Nijimura Shuzo and Haizaki Shogo. Hanamung Jun and others followed Niji, Siyuen, Zizu. Kirizaki's first appearance gave people a strong sense of oppression. Kasamatsu Yukio looked extremely serious and asked, "Kai's, do you know who Fang Jilai is and who knows about the construction of Hongsun?" Kai's Ryota looked at Kirisaki's number 1 player and shook his head. "I don't know, wait. Why is he here?" In the stands, Siren's Kuroko Tetsuya's expression suddenly changed. "Why? He's also number 1 in Kirisaki." After hearing what Kuroko Tetsuya said, Hinata Junpei immediately asked, "Kuroko, who is number 1 in Kirisaki?" T direction. "Haizaki, it seems that today is a contest between you and Kai's." Aomine Daiki stared at a voice on the court and murmured. Shitoka direction. "Who is Haizaki Shogo?" Takao and Chung asked immediately. Midorima Shintarō pushed his eyes and said seriously, "Haizaki Shogo, our teammate in junior high school, but later left the basketball club because of something." To put it bluntly, Kai's was Haizaki's substitute when he was in junior high school. In the direction of Siren. So, Kirisaki Daichi still has an era of miracles. Hinata Junpei's mouth opened wide. and his tone was filled with shock. Fang Jilai and Nijimura Shizo were already very difficult to deal with, and now here comes Haizaki Shogo, who suppressed Kai's Ryota in junior high school. Now, who can beat Kurizaki #1? Kuroko Tetsuya shook his head and said, "If I must say it, Haizaki-san is not in the age of miracles, and his talent is not at the level of the age of miracles." To be honest, it was precisely because of this that Haizaki-san was stripped out of the basketball club by Akashi-san. Kagane Shinji murmured. But even so, it is still a sub-miracle era level. Kuroko Tetsuya nodded, his tone very serious. Yes, Kurizaki is #1 now, very strong. On the field. Damn it, how strong is this? There are no blind spots. Kasamatsu Yukio's expression became extremely ugly. It was difficult to face Magic Cube and Nijimura Shizo before, but now comes Haizaki Shogo. What lineup is this? Rubik's Cube, Fang Jilai, the Age of Miracles, Captain Nijimura Shizo, the Age of Sub-Miracles, Haizaki Shogo, the 5 uncrowned generals, Hanamiya Makoto, and Asido Kintaro. What a magical lineup this is. Such a lineup can hang them up and beat them without coordination. Kasamatsu Yukio forced himself to calm down. Giving in before the game even starts is a taboo on the court. He must use 200% of his energy to face such a scene. Midorima Shintarō looked at Haizaki Shogo's figure on the stands and thought to himself, so, is this round between Haizaki and Kai's? Chapter 159. Talking trash at the beginning after the warm-up, the players from both sides came to the court to have a friendly exchange. Nijimura Shizo looked left and right, saw Ryota Kai's with yellow hair, and asked, "Are you Kai's?" Kai's Ryota was stunned when asked by Nijimura Shizo and replied, "Yes, I am. May I ask who you are?" Seeing that he had not mistaken the person, Hongtsuin Shiozao laughed and said, "Haha, it seems I didn't admit the wrong person. Let me introduce myself. My name is Hongtsuin Shiozao." Saying that, Nijimura Zizu stretched out his hand. Kai's Ryota stretched out his hand and held Nijimura Shizo's hand together and said, "So you're the captain during the Teikō period. By the way, who is Fang Jilai?" Hongtsuin Zizu pointed to Fang Jilai beside him and said, "No, this is the person you are looking for." Kai's Ryota quickly turned to look at Fang Jilai and said excitedly, "Are you Fang Jilai? I have long admired your name." Fang Jilai smiled lightly and said, "Nice to meet you. Please be serious about the next game." Kai's Ryota's expression suddenly became serious. He nodded and said, "I will." Haizaki Shogo said, mockingly at this time. This sound was heard by Kai's Ryota, but Kai's Ryota did not react at all. The referee slowly walked over and shouted, "Both sides line up." Kurizaki's first starter and Cage's starter stood together. Kurizaki #1 here. Center Sido Kintaro, power forward Shizo Nijimura, small forward Haizaki Shogo, shooting guard Fang Jilai, and point guard Makoto Hanamiya. Cage side. Center Kobori Hiroshi, power forward Midahiro Hayakawa, small forward Ryota Kai's, shooting guard Yutaka Moriyama, and point guard Yukio Kasamatsu. People from both sides spoke at the same time. "Please give me some advice." After saying hello, both sides stood in formation and prepared to start the jump ball. During preparation, Kai's Ryo looked at Kurisaki's #1 player seriously and was shocked. Such a configuration is terrifying no matter how you look at it. The referee slowly walked up to Sido Kintaro and Kobori Hiroshi and threw the basketball up. In the stands, everyone in Chunglin was thinking, "Here we go." On the field, Sido Kintaro and Kobori Hiroshi jumped up together. After Sido Kintaro went through training, his jumping ability was significantly enhanced. The jump ball was also hit by Sido Kintaro. The basketball was placed in Hanamiya Ma's hands. As soon as Hanamiya got the ball, he rushed out. Everyone in Cage also followed suit and took a defensive posture. Hanamiya's eyes kept scanning the entire court, and then he flicked his right hand and threw the basketball into the hands of Shizo Nijimura on the inside. Kai's Ryota was shocked. "Oops." Nijimura Shizo laughed loudly after catching the ball. "Haha." Then directly combined the ball and prepare for a layup in 2 steps. Mitsuhiro Hayakawa jumped up quickly. Nijimura Shizuo, who was preparing for a layup in the air, was confused for a moment, and then quickly turned the layup into a pull rod. He dodged Mitsuhiro Hayakawa's block and put the basketball into the basket. After scoring the goal, Nijimura Shizuo looked at Mitsuhiro Hayakawa and thought to himself, "This bullet speed is a bit fast." In the stands, everyone in Siren also discovered this. "That person, why didn't you notice before that why the bullet speed is so fast?" Kagami Taiga stared at Nijimura Shizuo on the field and thought to himself, becoming stronger again. On the field, cage possession of the ball, Yukio Kasamatsu dribbled the ball slowly through the half. Hanamiya Jun looked at the vigilant Kasamatsu Yukio with a smile on his lips. "What? Are you so panicked that you even start to be alert when dribbling? Or do you mean that you come to your teammates right from the start and don't even have the courage to face me? In that case, why are you still playing basketball? Go back and play the claw machine." Kasamatsu Yukio gritted his teeth when he heard the trash talk in his ears. "Finally decided to play this ball myself." Kasamatsu Yukio no longer looked at the position of his teammates and focused on Hanamiya Makoto. Hanamiya Jun raised the corners of his mouth. "Right? You are the captain. It's your turn to hit the first ball. Come on, let me see how far you, a monkey, can hit." When Yukio Kasamatsu heard that he was being ridiculed, he immediately gritted his teeth and started to attack. Fang Jilai watched the scene happening on the field quietly without any reaction. It's just normal trash talk, and Fang Jilai will naturally not stop it. But I have to say that Fang Jilai did not expect that the current Kasamatsu Yukio could be so easily aroused by Hanamiya Makoto. Kasamatsu Yukio kept dribbling the ball to mobilize Hanamiya's focus. Finally, he seized the opportunity and chose to break through from the right side. Hanamiya Jun followed immediately and blocked Kasamatsu Yukio's offensive position. Seeing this, Yukio Kasamatsu had no choice but to pull back and attack again. Kasamatsu Yukio made a big change this time to break through, but he was still stopped by Hanamiya Shin. Kasamatsu Yukio's expression changed slightly. His current breakthrough is simply not enough to break through Hanamiya Makoto, and blindly breaking through will only ruin the ball. Thinking of this, Kasamatsu Yukio prepared to pass the ball to his teammates. At this moment, Hanamiya realized what Kasamatsu Yukio meant. Hanamiya Jun, who did not want to see this scene, immediately shouted, "Why? The captain can't even score the first offense, but he still has to pass the ball to a first-year player. Are you just an accessory? You don't know how to play except for the first graders." "Oh, I understand. You are too weak, so weak that you don't even have the courage to attack. If I were you, I would have dropped out of school by now. Why are you playing basketball? I could just go back and take charge." After the continuous trash talk, Kasamatsu Yukio's expression finally became firm. "Fight! We must fight." Kasamatsu Yukio decided that he must hit this ball by himself. Seeing that his goal was achieved, the corners of Hanamiya's lips began to rise unconsciously. Kasamatsu Yukio then continued to choose to break through Hanamiya Makoto, and Hanamiya Makoto was also unambiguous and did not lose his position at all. Blocked Kasamatsu Yukio outside the three-point line. Kai's Ryota broke away from Haizaki Shogo's defense and ran out. He stretched out his hand and shouted, "Kasamatsu senpai, ball!" Kai's Ryota stretched out his hand and waited for Kasamatsu Yukio's pass. But after waiting for a long time, Kai's Ryota didn't arrive, which made Kai's Ryota a little confused. "Why, Kasamatsu senpai, actually." Of course, Kasamatsu Yukio didn't pass the ball because he just wanted to hit Hanamiya Shinichi. Hanamung is really too arrogant. He really can't control the emotions in his heart. During another breakthrough, Hanamiya Makoto seized the opportunity and broke Yukio Kasamatsu's basketball with a slap. Kasamatsu Yukio was shocked. Hateful. After Hanamongzen intercepted the ball, he laughed and said, "What? Are you an old man? You can even throw a basketball?" Chapter 160 Faint. Hanamiya Makoto taunted as he picked up the drop ball. Haizaki Shogo rushed out immediately upon seeing this. Hanamiya Shinya passed the ball to Haizaki Shogo without any hesitation. In the stands, Siren's Hinata Junpei didn't understand very much. Why are you fighting so hard? This is not Kasamatsu's style. Ida Reiko also didn't understand. Kasamatsu Yukio is not a singles player. Kagami Taiga interjected at this time. Could it be because of something the guy on the field did? Ida Reiko thought about it and thought it was possible. Look, Kai's is catching up, Kagane Shinji exclaimed. Sirin and everyone's eyes also returned to the field. On the field, Haizaki Shogo dribbled the ball and rushed forward crazily. When he rushed to the three-point line, a figure appeared in his sight. I won't let you pass. Kai's Ryota opened his hands and said with a serious expression. Haizaki Shogo stopped his fast attack and looked at Kai's Ryota in front of him. Oh, Haizaki Shogo suddenly sneered, then grinned. Then see if you could do it. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of a basketball hitting the floor was heard quickly. Haizaki Shogo slapped the basketball crazily, and the basketball kept changing in his hands, making it difficult to start. When Kai's Ryota saw this, cold sweat quietly appeared on the top of his head. So fast. Haizaki Shogo kept dribbling the ball quickly, and suddenly, boom. Haizaki Shogo exerted force with his left foot and broke through with the ball in his right hand. Kai's Ryota was shocked. Oops, collapse. By the time Ryota Kai's reacted, Haizaki Shogo had already dunked the basketball into the basket. Ta-ta-ta. Oh, is this all you have? Kai's. After Haizaki Shogo landed, he raised his head and taunted. Kai's Ryo looked at Haizaki Shogo seriously and said in a deep voice, You really haven't neglected your training these years. Haizaki Shogo's eyes narrowed. He looked at Kai's Ryota and said coldly, I'm not as miserable as you think. After saying that, Haizaki Shogo ran towards his backcourt. Kai's Ryota's expression became serious, and he murmured, The situation is getting worse. Kasamatsu Yukio came late and said with a guilty feeling, Sorry, I just got carried away. Yukio Kasamatsu calmed down after being intercepted. He knew that he had been angered by Hanamiya just now. The purpose of it all is to drop the ball yourself. After calming down, Kasamatsu Yukio made up his mind that no matter what Hanamiya said, he would turn a blind eye. Transition of possession, cage possession. Yukio Kasamatsu took the serve and slowly led it forward. After halftime, Hanamiya came forward and started trash talk mode. Ho ho ho, our captain, is he going to start passing the ball again? Kasamatsu Yukio frowned, trying his best not to listen to Hanamiya's nonsense. He quickly found Kai's Ryota and passed the basketball. Hanamiya didn't make any move when he saw this. He just shook his head. His expression became filled with hatred. Really, I thought our captain was really capable, but it turns out he's just a gadget that can only pass the ball. Kasamatsu Yukio was very unhappy and replied, Aren't you just a passing accessory? Hanamiya Mari said confidently, I am. Haha, as expected, you what? Kasamatsu Yukio thought that Hanamiya would really refute, so he had already prepared his words to reply. In the end, Hanamiya's generous admission made him confused. Upon seeing this, Hanamiya spread his hands and said casually, What's not easy to admit? I just can't beat Lai Ge and the others, so I'm good as an accessory. Speaking of this, Hanamiya's expression changed and became playful. What about you, Captain? Do you also admit that you are an accessory? You are the captain. Kasamatsu Yukio gritted his teeth and suppressed the anger in his heart. I thought you would change, but it seems I misjudged you. You just turned your dirty tricks to your mouth. Huamongjun grinned and said calmly, Are you in a hurry? Kasamatsu Yukio's face turned red and he shouted, You! Hanamiya Jun continued, Are you in a hurry? I'm anxious for you. Are you in a hurry? The referee heard the argument between the two and immediately warned, If you keep arguing, I'll give you AT. Hanamiya Jun immediately raised his hand and nodded. Oh, it's unfair, referee. I didn't make any noise. It was Cage's captain who kept beeping. Kasamatsu Yukio looked at Hanamiya Makoto in disbelief. He didn't expect Hanamiya to be so shameless. Other side, Ryota Kai's caught the ball and faced Haizaki Shogo. He looked seriously at this very familiar face and finally took a deep breath. Bang! The basketball was suddenly slapped down by Kai's Ryota. Kai's Ryota switched the basketball from his right hand to his left hand and made a big change of direction. Haizaki Shogo immediately noticed that he was blocking Kai's Ryota's path. Kai's Ryo had anticipated this too early, and he immediately turned around with his right foot as the axis. Upon seeing this, Haizaki Shogo immediately changed his focus and went up to defend in time. After turning around, Ryota Kai's looked at the basket and made movements to combine the ball with his hands. Haizaki Shogo, who wanted to block the shot, immediately jumped up. However, when he jumped up, he found out. Kai's Ryota didn't even take off. Oops, it's a fake move. Kai's Ryota turned around and made a bow to light up the Haizaki Shogo. He seized the opportunity and rushed directly into the inside line. Just as Nijimura Shuzo was about to cover up his defense, he saw Ryota Kai's jump up and throw the basketball. Seeing this, Hongsu and Shiozao had no choice but to stop. It doesn't seem very stupid to choose a mid-range shot. The basketball entered the basket steadily after being thrown. Brush. Cage scored 2 points. In the stands, Kagami Taiga shouted excitedly after seeing Ryota Kai's score a goal. Beautiful. It seems that Haizaki is not very strong. He was completely shaken by Kai's. For those who don't know Fang Jilai and others, Kagami Taiga certainly hopes that Kai's Ryota can win this game. No, I feel like it's not that simple. Hinata, Junpei's expression changed, and he looked towards the field. Haizaki Shogo on the court did not have any frustrated expression, but had a weird smile on his face. There was no cheer after Ryota Kai scored. After all, we only scored 2 points, so we should leave the cheering after the victory, although there's a high probability that there will be no cheering. Haizaki Shogo looked at Kai's Ryota with a weird smile, not knowing what he was thinking. Chapter 161, I Must Avenge My Little Brother. Transition of Possession. Hanamiya didn't hesitate at all after halftime and immediately passed the basketball to Haizaki Shogo. The instructions given by Fang Jilai in this game were very simple. Let Haizaki Shogo have fun. I went to the beautiful country, but my younger brother was occupied by a new arrival. He is not allowed to avenge his younger brother. There is also the second personality, Akashi Sejiro. I must hit him until he doubts his life. After Haizaki Shogo received the pass, he sneered at Ryota Kai's. You don't need to be so strict. You should also know how I will attack, right? Kai's Ryota defended Haizaki Shogo with a serious expression. He certainly knows how Haizaki Shogo will attack. According to Haizaki Shogo's character, this shot will 100% use the action he just made. I just need, idiot, you still can't change your habit of losing your mind on the court. Bang, bang, bang. Haizaki Shogo's voice and the sound of basketball being slapped suddenly came from behind Kai's Ryota. It turned out that Haizaki Shogo seized the opportunity when Kai's Ryota was distracted, activated instantly, and broke through Kai's Ryota. Kai's Ryota turned his head sharply and shouted, "Take up defense." Kobori Hiroshi immediately stepped forward to defend. Haizaki Shogo laughed maniacally. "What are you doing to stop me?" As he spoke, Haizaki Shogo dribbled the ball vigorously with his right hand, switched the basketball to his left hand, and made a big change of direction. Kobori Hiroshi didn't react a little, thinking that he had been broken through. But suddenly he saw Haizaki Shogo turning back. Kobori Hiroshi felt happy and immediately stepped forward to defend. Haizaki Shogo turned around, looked at the basket, and made a ball-joining gesture with his hands. Kobori Hiroshi noticed this and jumped up immediately. Kai's Ryota saw this and shouted, "Kobori-senpai doesn't want it," but it was too late. Kobori Hiroshi had already jumped up, and after jumping up, he also discovered something was wrong. Fake action. Haizaki Shogo sneered and looked at Kobori Hiroshi, who jumped up with mocking eyes. Finally, Haizaki Shogo stepped forward slightly under the surprised gaze of Kobori Hiroshi, hooked his right hand, and firmly hooked the basketball into the basket. Did a brush. The basketball bounced on the basket a few times and then entered the basket. After the goal, the audience also started to applaud. Kagami Taiga in the stands was extremely surprised. Why? His movements are exactly the same as Kai's movements just now. Hinata Junpei's eyes were constantly fluctuating, explaining his inner unrest. Shinji Kagane had a slight cold sweat on his head. He turned to ask Kuroko Tetsuya, who was standing beside him. Kuroko, do you know what this is about? The eyes of everyone in Siren immediately focused on Kuroko Tetsuya. Kuroko Tetsuya was once again under the attention of everyone and said, because Haizaki-san's talent is very similar to Kai-san's. Fukuda Wide asked, is he also the same imitation as Kai's? Kuroko Tetsuya shook his head and said, no, Haizaki-san's talent is plunder. T-direction. Plunder. Wakamatsu Kosuka exclaimed, Aomine, what do you mean Haizaki can rob other people's skills? Aomine Daiki nodded calmly. Well, that's what Haizaki is capable of. Imayoshi Shoichi wiped the sweat from his forehead with his hand and said, it's really a terrifying ability. King Fong Dahoe put his hands behind his head and said casually, however, Haizaki's ability can be considered a bit flawed. If calculated in terms of talent, Kai's talent is definitely far superior to Haizaki's. In the direction of Siren. What flaw? Iwejun asked. Kuroko Tetsuya thought for a while and finally said, although Haizaki-san can rob the skills he sees, he cannot rob the skills with his own personal style. For example, he can't plunder the skills of the 5 people in the Age of Miracles, because their skills are very personal. To put it bluntly, Haizaki-san can only do the plunder action, not the plunder style. Hinata Junpei seemed to have a clue and asked, Kuroko, you mean that Haizaki will add his own style to all plunder skills, then use this to disrupt the opponent's rhythm, so that the next time the opponent uses the same skill, they will subconsciously enter Haizaki's rhythm, thereby achieving the predation effect? Kuroko Tetsuya nodded. Theoretically, that's the case. Hinata Junpei couldn't help but nodded, with an expression of sudden realization. So that's it. It doesn't sound very difficult. What the hell? It's difficult to just imitate other people's skills. Now you have to transform other people's skills into your own style. In the end, you have to disrupt your opponent's rhythm. Such a person is not easy no matter how you look at it. Collapse. Ida Reiko punched Hinata Junpei on the head and said in a deep voice, stop yelling. Just calm down and watch the game. Hinata Junpei covered his head and nodded painfully. On the field, Cage has already begun to attack. This time Kai's Ryota did not choose to use the same skills as last time, because he knows very well that when Haizaki Shogo uses the move just now, he will subconsciously imitate Haizaki Shogo's style of play. This resulted in my first few attacks not going very smoothly, although Kai's Ryota can also imitate Haizaki Shogo's style of play. But once you do that, it's easy to get penetrated by Haizaki Shogo's moves. After all, Haizaki Shogo is the one who knows his own rhythm best. As a result, a stalemate began on the field. Fang Jilai and Hong Tsuin Xiuzhao directly transformed into the crowd on the scene. Apart from passing the ball and defending, they basically did nothing else, completely giving up the battlefield. Gave it to his younger brother. This breath, I must let my little brother out. Fang Jilai and Nijimura Shuji did not attack, so all the ball rights were given to Haizaki Shogo. The same goes for Cage. Almost all the ball is in the hands of Ryota Kai's. Although he is very unwilling to do so, only Ryota Kai's can score better on the court now. Kasamatsu Yukio was so obsessed with Hanamiya that he wanted to draw a knife on the spot. Hiroshi Kobori couldn't catch the pass at all. Seto Kintaro followed Kobori tightly every time, preventing Kobori from catching the ball properly. Mitsuhiro Hayakawa gave up the attack after being blocked by Nijimura Shuzo for 2 consecutive goals. He knew he couldn't break through, so instead of playing hard like this, he might as well give the ball to others to attack. As for Moriyama Yutaka, he became completely honest after being blocked by Fang Jilai for 3 goals. Since then, Kai's Ryota has become Cage's last fire. Chapter 162, Familiar Actions. Beep. The first quarter is over. The referee blew the whistle to end the first quarter. The main players from both sides came off the field to rest. The score between the two sides came to 26-22, with Kurosaki leading by 4 points. The audience in the stands looked at the score and began to discuss it. The score is very close. It looks evenly matched. Evenly matched? Evenly matched. Didn't you see that Fang Jilai and Hongsu and Zayuza didn't take action at all? However, I seem to have a vague impression of the gray-haired man. He seems to be Teikō as well. If you put it that way, I feel like I've seen him in Teikō. In the direction of Siren. Everyone in Siren looked solemn, although the score on the field is not much different. But they all knew in their hearts that Cage was in trouble, because Kurosaki's top real scorers, Fang Jilai and Nijimura Shuzo, did not start the scoring mode at all. All the points were taken by Haizaki Shogo. To be precise, the first quarter of the game could not be considered a 5v5 game at all. It was completely a 1v1 match between Haizaki Shogo and Kai's Ryota. Cage, it's difficult, Hinata Junpei said in a deep voice. If what Kuroko said is correct, Haizaki can only be regarded as Kurosaki's number 3 scorer, and Kai's is Cage trump card. Even the third scorer suppressed Kai's. It's hard for me to imagine the scene when Fang Jilai and Nijimura started scoring. Kagami Taiga's expression was very solemn. He did not refute Hinata Junpei's words, but followed Hinata Junpei's words. That's right, if Kai's can't open the score before Fang Jilai and Nijimura take action, the game will basically be in doubt. A heavy atmosphere spread from where everyone in Siren was standing. No one expected that Cage High, who they found troublesome, would be in a desperate situation when facing Kurosaki number 1. Cage High bench. Kai's Ryota sat on the bench and breathed heavily. In the first quarter of the game, almost all the pressure was put on him. Not only does he have to defend Haizaki Shogo hard, he also has to maintain his firepower on the offensive end. As a result, his physical exertion can be said to be huge. Look at the other side. Haizaki Shogo is also panting, but the frequency of panting is obviously much less than that of Kai's Ryota. This is all due to the Fang family's training of Haizaki Shogo, which has significantly improved his physical strength compared to the original work. It can be said that, among other things, Kurosaki's endurance is absolutely top-notch. Fang Jilai took the pink water glass handed over by Satsuki Momoi, took a sip of water, and said, "Haizaki, you still have 1 period left. At the beginning of the third quarter, Senior Nijimura will take over the game." Haizaki Shogo nodded after hearing this and said, "I know, Leg. Fang Jilai has decided that Nijimura Shuzo will take over the game in the third quarter. As for why it's not me, I'm sorry, it's not necessary. Fang Jilai really has no interest in the current Kai's Ryota. Kai's Ryota, who cannot activate perfect imitation, is not even qualified to score a goal in front of Zack. Such Kai's Ryota is not worth Fang Jilai's actions at all. Currently, there are only 3 people in Sakura country worthy of Fang Jilai's personal action. Aomine Daiki, Midorima Shintarō, and the second personality, Akashi Sejiro. Atsushi Murasakibara? Sorry, my eldest baby will join my team soon. Beep. The second quarter begins. Players from both sides, please come on the court. The referee blew the whistle to start the second quarter. Fang Jilai and others stood up and walked onto the court. There are no changes to Kurosaki Daiichi's lineup. After all, the first quarter was almost all fishing, and the only one working hard was Haizaki Shogo. The same is true for Cage, with the 5 main players continuing to play. But the one who is different from Kurosaki Daiichi is Kai's Ryota. Kai's Ryota's current condition is not very good. The rest period at the end of a quarter was not enough for him to fully recover. Now he is still breathing heavily while standing on the court. Kasumatsu Yukio felt very uncomfortable when he saw Kai's Ryota's state. At the beginning of the second quarter, Kurosaki got the first ball. Kurosaki was more direct this time. It was up to Hanamiya to dribble the ball past halftime. The serve was sent directly to Haizaki Shogo, and he looked as if he had given all the ball rights to Haizaki Shogo. Haizaki Shogo slowly dribbled the ball through the half. Looking at Ryota Kai's, who was still out of breath, he didn't hesitate at all. He made a crotch dribbling motion and broke through from Kai's Ryota's right side. Kai's Ryota did not dare to hesitate and pressed tightly against Haizaki Shogo. Sudden, Haizaki Shogo suddenly retreated to the three-point line and jumped up. 3 points? Kai's Ryota was startled, and he followed quickly and jumped up high. After jumping up, Kai's Ryota's expression changed. Damn it, why are we getting further and further away? In the stands, Kagami Taiga's heart trembled when he saw the familiar movements and said in a trembling tone, "That's Midorima's Shitoka direction." Midorima Shintarō's pupils shrank slightly when he saw the familiar movements. Then he shook his head and murmured, "Akashi, your decision seems to be wrong." T-direction. Aomine Daiki stared at the field, and after noticing Haizaki Shogo's movements, he murmured, "Has plundering reached this level?" Then Aomine Daiki looked at Kai's Ryota again and said regretfully, "It's a pity. You are obviously more talented than Haizaki, but your talent awakening is too slow. I hope this failure can accelerate your growth." Aomine Daiki still had a good impression of Kai's Ryota. Although Kai's Ryota can be annoying sometimes, he will not bring negative emotions to Aomine Daiki. On the other hand, Haizaki Shogo is either on the path of Ki Aomine Daiki or on the road to Ki Aomine Daiki. As a result, when Aomine Daiki saw Haizaki Shogo, he had the urge to rush up and FK him immediately. But this feeling is not the annoying feeling in the original work. But now Haizaki Shogo really owes too much. Even Fang Jilai and Hongsuenziza couldn't help but want to FK him sometimes. On the field, Haizaki Shogo won the ball with a fadeaway jumper. The score was 29-22. After the goal, Haizaki Shogo glanced at Kai's Ryota and turned back to defend. Although Kai's Ryota is very tired, he doesn't dare to relax now. Now Cage scoring must be carried by him. Ball. Kai's Ryota reached for the ball. After Yukio Kasumatsu looked at Kai's Ryota panting, he felt a little different in his heart, but he still passed the ball to Kai's Ryota. Chapter 163 Thunder Dribbling appears again. Kai's Ryota immediately launched an attack after catching the pass. He used a crotch dribble to break through from the right side of Haizaki Shogo, then immediately stepped back to the outside and jumped up. Haizaki Shogo smiled contemptuously at the familiar movements. He suddenly took a step forward and jumped high with his right foot, completely blocking Kai's Ryota's shooting route. Kai's Ryota's face changed drastically when he saw this scene from the air. How could it be? You can actually follow so fast. Snap! Haizaki Shogo slapped Kai's Ryota's basketball racket away. You are so naive. The basketball flew out of bounds instantly. Beep. Out of bounds. Cage ball rights. Kai's Ryota stood there panting heavily, looking extremely embarrassed. Haizaki Shogo gently wiped the sweat from his face with his jersey and stood next to Kai's Ryota, preparing to continue defending. The game continues with Cage taking a throw-in. Kai's Ryota immediately ran out of position and caught the basketball. Holding the basketball in his arms, he stared at Haizaki Shogo, constantly thinking about countermeasures. Imitation. It is impossible for Haizaki Shogo to use the moves, because Haizaki Shogo is very familiar with the moves he has used recently. It is impossible for Kai's Ryo to score too easily. The only way to score now is to take the unexpected. Kai's Ryota took a deep breath, lunged forward, and then moved the ball sideways to jump and shoot. Haizaki Shogo was shaken by the initial thrust and took a step back. Haizaki Shogo didn't react until Kai's Ryota moved laterally. Although Haizaki Shogo immediately pounced on him, Kai's Ryota still let the basketball go out. The basketball drew a beautiful arc in the air and finally got into the basket. After scoring the goal, Kai's Ryota's breathing became more and more obvious. Oof, oof, oof. Kasumatsu Yukio noticed this scene, and he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Obviously, he and others are seniors, so it stands to reason that they should bear the burden of scoring. But what about now? Now all the pressure is on a first-year student, their junior. This situation makes Yukio Kasumatsu always feel a little guilty. Transition of possession. Haizaki Shogo received the pass from Hanamiya Makoto and said to the panting Kai's Ryota, "Kais, how long can you hold on now?" Kai's Ryota replied breathlessly, "Oh, I can still hold on until you end." Haizaki Shogo raised the corners of his mouth and asked, "Yeah? Then let me see your perseverance." After saying that, Haizaki Shogo started dribbling the ball vigorously with his right hand, and the ball hit the floor with a loud dong 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 sound. Kai's Ryota's pupils couldn't help but begin to shrink. Familiar. So familiar. This action Kai's Ryota can never forget to this day. This was the third time in a row that he had passed the junior high school level. Thunder, dribbling, Kai's Ryota murmured, "Boom, boom, 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 boom." Haizaki Shogo slapped the basketball harder and harder, and the sound started to get louder and louder. In the stands, Shitoka direction, Takao Kazunari covered his ears and asked, "What is this? Why is the sound so loud?" Midorima Shintarō's expression changed slightly, and he said in a deep voice, "Thunder dribbling, Haizaki, have you actually mastered this move?" In the direction of Siren, "Thunder dribbling? Is this Haizaki's move?" Kagane Shinji exclaimed. Kuroko Tetsuya nodded and said, "No, thunder dribbling is the move of Kotaro Hayama in the 5 Untitled Generals." Kagane Shinji was stunned and asked quickly, "Wait, Haizaki can actually loot their moves?" Kuroko Tetsuya looked at the field and murmured, "I didn't know whether Haizaki-san could pray their moves before, but now it seems that he has done it." On the field, Haizaki Shogo's dribbling force became stronger and stronger. When the force reached its peak, Haizaki Shogo laughed loudly and shouted, "5 fingers!" Click! Haizaki Shogo instantly turned into a gray lightning and sped away from Kai's Ryota's right side. By the time Ryota Kai's and others in cage reacted, Haizaki Shogo had already scored the ball. Kasumatsu Yukio swallowed his saliva and exclaimed at his heart, "Monster!" Everyone in cage was stunned by this sudden move, and they all froze on the spot. Upon seeing this, Kai's Ryota gritted his teeth and shouted, "Ball!" Kobori Hiroshi immediately reacted and handed the basketball to Kai's Ryota. Kai's Ryota caught the ball and slowly advanced to the front court. He looked at Haizaki Shogo, who was defending him, and took a deep breath. "I want to win. Open your eyes again." Ryota Kai's started dribbling vigorously. The basketball hit the floor and made a heavy dong-dong sound again. Boom, 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 boom. In the stands, Kagami Taiga's expression became surprised. Could it be? On the field, 5 fingers. Kai's Ryota roared and used all 5 fingers to exert force, swinging the basketball to his left hand. Then his whole body turned into a bolt of yellow lightning and went straight towards Kurosaki number 1's inside line. However, Haizaki Shogo became alert as early as Kai's Ryota started dribbling vigorously. He quickly followed up and intercepted Kai's Ryota's offensive line. Kai's Ryota saw Haizaki Shogo and followed him. Not wanting to miss the opportunity, he gritted his teeth and used thunder dribbling again. 5 fingers. Click. Kai's Ryota turned into a yellow lightning once again. A change of direction on the move past Haizaki Shogo. Haizaki Shogo looked shocked and shouted in disbelief, "How? How is it possible?" After Kai's Ryota broke through Haizaki Shogo, he jumped up high. Collapse! Kai's Ryota roared and dunked the basketball into the basket with his right hand like a tomahawk. After the goal, the audience was silent for a while and then began to cheer. Even Kagami Taiga couldn't help but be happy for Kai's Ryota. Kai's! Beautiful! While everyone was cheering, something unexpected happened on the field. After Kai's Ryota landed, he immediately knelt on the ground. His legs began to tremble constantly, as if they were filled with lead, and they were too heavy to stand up. Kai's Ryota gritted his teeth and tried to stand up, but his legs seemed to be out of control, not responding at all. Kai's Ryota slapped his legs unwillingly and shouted, "Move! Move!" Kasumatsu Yukio noticed something was wrong with Kai's Ryota and immediately shouted, "Pause." The referee immediately blew his whistle. Beep. Cage requests a timeout. Chapter 164 Hope? It's just a mixture of desire and expectation. Ryota Kai's was helped off the field by Yukio Kasamatsu. Haizaki Shogo gave him a cold look and then walked to the court. In the stands, Kagami Taiga's expression was not very good, and he said with worry in his tone, "Damn it, Kai's actually ran out of energy so quickly." Ida Reiko frowned, thought for a while, and explained, "Pressure." Cade's offensive pressure was all on Kai's, and Kai's didn't dare to relax when competing with Haizaki in the first quarter. In fact, the main reason should be the thunder dribbling just now. He did a second thunder dribble in the middle of the road, which was really damaging to his knee. After everyone heard Ida Reiko's explanation, they all showed worried looks. On the field, Kai's Ryota sat slumped on the stool, cold sweat continuously falling from his face, dripping onto the floor and forming a small puddle. He breathed in the air greedily, panting extremely violently. At this time, he only felt as if his throat was being roasted, which was extremely uncomfortable. Kai's Ryota couldn't stand this feeling, so he immediately picked up the water bottle on the side and started drinking. Upon seeing this, Kasamatsu Yukio immediately grabbed the water bottle and scolded, "You don't want your life. If you pour water in this situation, you really think you can live for a long time, don't you?" Kai's Ryota also realized that his behavior was not good for his health, so he replied with difficulty, "Hug. Sorry." Kasamatsu Yukio's expression became guilty when he saw this scene, and he felt very uncomfortable. Kai's. Kasamatsu Yukio turned around and looked at Kurizaki's number 1 position, and finally made a decision. "Coach, let Kai's rest." Kasamatsu Yukio said to the coach. Others in cage didn't react much, because they all felt that Kai's Ryota really needed to rest now. But Kai's Ryota himself didn't think so. Kai's Ryota raised his head suddenly and asked in a panic, "Kasamatsu senpai, what?" Kasamatsu Yukio's expression was firm, and his eyes were locked with Kai's Ryota's. "There are not so many reasons. If you are told to end, you will end." Kai's Ryota immediately became dissatisfied and exclaimed, "Why? Only I can score in front of them now. If I go off, the game will be completely over. Fool." Kasamatsu Yukio cursed violently. Kai's Ryota was stunned for a moment and stood there without saying another word. Kasamatsu Yukio continued, "Do you think you are a hero? Do you think you are great? Put everything on yourself. Exclude us and leave you alone to face it. What do you think of us? I tell you, even if the sky falls, it won't be your turn to carry it. We seniors will carry it for you first." After Kasamatsu Yukio finished speaking, Kai's Ryota was silent. After a moment of silence, Kai's Ryota still wanted to fight for it again. Suddenly, a hand patted Kai's Ryota on the shoulder. Kai's Ryota turned his head and looked at the owner of the hand. I saw Yutaka Moriyama shaking his head at Kai's Ryota. "Kai's, trust us." Mitsuhiro Hayakawa also stood up at this time and said, "Yes, Kai's, you have to believe us." Kai's Ryota looked at his seniors and felt a different emotion in his heart. His eyes were slightly red. Everyone. Kai's Ryota wiped the tears that were about to come out, smiled, and said with relief, "Then please leave it to the seniors." Kasamatsu Yukio and others all showed smiles and shouted in unison, "Leave it to us." Beep. The timeout is over. Both sides are on the field. The referee blew the whistle to continue the game. Kasamatsu Yukio's eyes were firm, and he shouted to the people around him, "Everyone, hold on. Show our fellow students our bloody nature." Mitsuhiro Hayakawa shouted, "Yes." Moriyama Yutaka also smiled. Everyone in cage came back on the stage with high spirits. They have to fight hard. At least, they have to bite the score so that they can get a chance for Kai's Ryota, who only came on the court in the third quarter. Haizaki Shogo noticed the change in Cage's momentum and personnel. He smiled contemptuously and murmured, "Do you still want to capture that wisp of hope?" The game continues. Kurizaki gets the first ball. Fang Jilai passed the basketball to Haizaki Shogo and said, "Haizaki, Kai's is out. As for whether you can force him up, it's up to you." In the third quarter, Senior Nijimura must take over the game no matter what. Haizaki Shogo's expression became serious after hearing this. He looked at Kai's Ryota off the field and muttered silently in his heart. Originally, I wanted to keep some, but there was no other way. Lai Ge had already asked for it. Kais, our fight is not over yet. You can't leave so early. In the stands, everyone in Chungrin became serious. Hinata Junpei was the first to speak. Cage has to work hard. They must keep the score in this quarter and not let the score difference be too far apart. Otherwise, when Kais comes on the court in the third quarter, we won't be able to catch up with the score. Kagane Shinji asked with a puzzled expression. But Kais can't stop Haizaki, can they? Hinata Junpei closed his eyes and said in a deep voice, That's why I said, Cage, have to fight hard. On the field, as soon as Haizaki Shogo reached the three-point line, Kasamatsu Yukio and Nakamura Shinya immediately followed up. Haizaki Shogo avoided the two steals and dribbled the ball while watching the two. Suddenly, Haizaki Shogo smiled contemptuously and asked, Do you think there is still hope for you? Kasamatsu Yukio's eyes were firm, and he replied resolutely, As long as the game is not over, there is hope for everything. Ha 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 ha. Haizaki Shogo suddenly burst into laughter, and his whole person was extremely crazy. Nakamura Shinya frowned and asked, Why are you laughing? Haizaki Shogo's laughter gradually weakened, but the crazy smile on his face did not weaken at all. You ask me why I'm laughing? Suddenly, Haizaki Shogo's smile stopped. His expression became extremely gloomy, and he said viciously, Hope. I don't know how many times I've heard this word. It seems that I heard it the most when I was in Teikō. At that time, there seemed to be a lot of people saying they hoped. But in the end, they all gave up basketball. So, hope and so on are just a mixture of desire and expectation. It's just a fantasy after all, in the face of real strength. Misty things. It's not worth believing. Experience it. The strength that will break your illusions. Chapter 165, The Lone Wolf Reappears Finished. A ferocious, bloody, and dangerous aura burst out from Haizaki Shogo's body and swept everyone on the field. The bodies of Yukio Kasamatsu and Shinya Nakamura began to tremble unconsciously, as if they had encountered some extreme danger. Kasamatsu Yukio murmured with a trembling tone, What the hell is this? Ouch! Everyone in the entire stadium seemed to hear a wolf howl. A wolf howl seemed to bring everyone to nature and face the wolves in nature in person. In the stands, King Feng Dahoe felt this aura immediately. His expression suddenly stiffened, but soon turned into excitement. Wild nature. Haizaki, it turns out you also have wild nature. Of course, Aomine Daiki knows what it is. After all, he owns it himself. In the direction of Siren, Kagane Shinji asked slowly, Have you heard the howling of wolves? Fukuda's mouth opened wide. He nodded repeatedly and affirmed, I heard it. Cold sweat continued to flow from the top of Hinata Junpei's head. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and said in a panic, What the hell is this? Kagami Taiga was also surprised because he had never seen such a state before. However, when he felt this state, he felt like something in his body wanted to burst out. Kagami Taiga also became excited because of this feeling. So strong. I really want to fight him once. An excited smile appeared on Kagami Taiga's face. He couldn't wait to have a game with Haizaki Shogo. On the field, Kasamatsu Yukio and Nakamura Shinya saw it most clearly. They saw a gray-haired wolf appeared behind Haizaki Shogo. This wolf stands here like the wolf king of the pack. Haizaki Shogo's wildness. Lone wolf. After turning on the wild nature, Haizaki Shogo felt that his body was full of power. He laughed wildly and said to the two people defending him, Watch out. How do I crush your hopes? The next second, Haizaki Shogo moves. Without any unnecessary movement, he passed between the two of them in an instant. Just like a lone wolf tearing apart the enemy's defense line. After entering the inside lane, Haizaki Shogo was in no man's land. He blasted the ball violently, exerted force on one leg with his right foot, and jumped high. The lone wolf behind him also raised his head high. Collapse. Haizaki Shogo poured the basketball into the basket with great force. The lone wolf behind him also howled, as if he was venting his victory. Ouch! The basket shook constantly, like a trembling prey at the feet of a lone wolf. There was a deathly silence. Except for the gasping sound of the basketball hitting the ground, all other sounds became weaker. After 2.5 seconds of silence, the audience began to cheer. Oh my God! What is that? Howling. So handsome. Just like a wolf entering a flock of sheep. Completely invincible. Kurizaki's first overall winner. The cheers of the audience were in stark contrast to the silence of everyone in Cage. Their hopes seemed really shattered. Kasamatsu Yukio stood quietly and began to doubt himself. Can I really defeat this monster? Kai's Ryota, who was resting on the sidelines, saw this scene and immediately stood up and shouted, "Kasamatsu senpai." Kasamatsu Yukio came back to his senses after hearing a familiar voice. He turned his head and met Kai's Ryota's firm eyes. The moment they looked at each other, he seemed to be relieved and smiled to himself. Really, I was laughed at by my junior classmate again. Finally, he raised his head and shouted, "Cheer up, everyone. The game is not over yet." Everyone in Cage raised their heads and looked at Kasamatsu Yukio, and then at Kai's Ryota. Then everyone was completely relieved. That's right. Even the captain and junior fellow students didn't give up. So what reason did they have to give up? Yes, everyone shouted in unison, their fighting spirit restored. Seeing this scene, Haizaki Shogo couldn't help but approve of Cage. Those who have not given up the game under such circumstances are indeed worthy of respect. In that case, I will offer you my highest courtesy and send you to defeat. Haizaki Shogo seized the opportunity and intercepted Kasamatsu Yukio's pass. One person carries the basketball straight to the opponent's basket. The lone wolf behind him kept running, as if chasing prey. The 5 members of Cage returned to defense collectively, trying to stop Haizaki Shogo's movement. As for Fang Jilai, the 4 of them did not make any move. They all stood quietly on their own field, without the slightest thought of attacking. Since Haizaki Shogo has turned on the wild, and Kai's Ryota has not played, then there is no need for them to attack. The current Haizaki Shogo and Cage are unable to stop him. At most, they can only restrict him. Then there was an interesting scene on the court. Kurosaki Daichi's 4 players, except Haizaki Shogo, all stood in their own backcourt without any movement. Haizaki Shogo rushed out alone to face Cage's 5 people. Auditorium. Hey, Kurosaki now. 1. Why is no one moving? Is it only the gray-haired guy who attacks? No. Is he going to fight 1 against 5? That's Cage. It's not a weak team. Kagami Taiga also couldn't believe it and exclaimed, "Does he want 1 against 5? How is this possible?" Siren, who is always focused on team basketball, and the others were silent. They simply couldn't believe that someone could beat Cage 5 by 1. T-direction. Wakamatsu Kosuka immediately questioned. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible for him to fight 1 against 5. This is not a one-on-one fight. The defense of 5 people is not that easy to break. Aomine Daiki glanced at Wakamatsu Kosuka and mocked. So your vision is too small. Don't use your weak perspective to evaluate others. Wakamatsu Kosuka immediately became unhappy and said angrily, "King Feng, what do you mean?" King Feng Dehue spread his hands indifferently and said casually, "It's not interesting, it's just the truth." On the field, Haizaki Shogo deliberately slowed down in order to let the 5 people come back to defend. Because only by doing this can they crush their hopes to the greatest extent and finally let Ryota Kai's play. After seeing the 5 players returning to defense, Haizaki Shogo's mouth began to rise, and his dribbling and breakthrough speed began to increase. Let me break your hopes. Chapter 166 Kai's Ryota. Imitate. Haizaki Shogo kept dribbling the ball with both hands, pushing the ball out with his right hand, and rushed forward with the ball. He passed directly between Yutaka Moriyama and Yukio Kasamatsu. After entering the inside line, Mitsuhiro Hayakawa immediately stepped up to defend. Haizaki Shogo didn't hesitate at all. He made a bad move with his right hand and quickly broke through and defeated Mitsuhiro Hayakawa. After breaking through Mitsuhiro Hayakawa, Hiroshi Kobori and Shinya Nakamura immediately stepped up to defend. Haizaki Shogo's eyes narrowed, and the lone wolf shadow behind him also made an attack gesture. Haizaki Shogo used both hands to blast the ball, and after a physical confrontation with Kobori Hiroshi, he picked up the basket. Nakamura Shinya naturally couldn't let Haizaki Shogo get what he wanted, so he immediately jumped up and tried to cover Haizaki Shogo. However, Haizaki Shogo was well prepared. He immediately withdrew the hand that was about to pick the basket, changed hands in the air, and hooked the basketball into the basket. Haizaki Shogo hits 5 and scores 2 more points. After scoring the goal, Haizaki Shogo turned around and started to defend without any hesitation. Everyone in Cage stood there with a trace of confusion on their faces. In the direction of Siren, Kagami Taiga's expression was stiff and there was disbelief in his tone. It's really 1 against 5. Hinata Junpei swallowed and cursed in his mind. What a pervert. On the field, the Cage team is still attacking, but the efficiency of the attack is disappointing. Without Queen Mother Kai's Rio, they never scored a goal again, and their turnover rate continues to rise. There were also a lot of turnovers in passing. Kasamatsu Yukio found that no matter where he passed the ball, Hanamiya Jun seemed to know that he could pass the ball and intercepted his basketball many times in a row. This resulted in Cage's men having to run behind Yukio Kasamatsu to catch the ball. But in this case, passing the ball is meaningless. Cage completely fell into a scoring drought. And, on the defensive end, they couldn't stop the wild Haizaki Shogo. Even though Haizaki Shogo was the only one in Kurosaki Daiichi who rushed forward, the 5 of them couldn't stop him at all. There are only a few times when I'm lucky that I can make Haizaki Shogo's shot hit, and other times I can't stop Haizaki Shogo at all. Haizaki Shogo was like a hungry wolf, tearing apart their defense and making them miserable. The score was also completely stretched. Kai's Ryota looked at the grim situation on the field and the ever-widening score. He immediately found the coach, hoping to let him play. "Coach, I want to play." Gina Takeuchi also knew that the current situation was very unfavorable to Cage. So when Kai's Ryota took the initiative to ask for a job, he immediately agreed. Beep. Team Cage is requesting a substitution. Kai's Ryota came back on the court with a very determined expression on his face, arranging his uniform while playing. Yukio Kasamatsu felt a little sorry when he saw Ryota Kai's come on the court again with more than 2 minutes left in the second quarter. It was obviously his own words to hold up the sky for Kai's Ryota, but in the end, the sky fell deeper. There is no way around this. After all, they can't stop Haizaki Shogo at all. Kasamatsu Yukio walked up to Kai's Ryota with a guilty look on his face. "I'm sorry, I didn't guard against Haizaki." Kai's Ryota smiled indifferently. "It's okay, Kasamatsu senpai. You have worked very hard, and the rest." Speaking of this, Kai's Ryota's expression became extremely firm. "Just leave it to me." The game continues. Cage ball possession. Ryota Kai's dribbled the ball in front of Haizaki Shogo. Looking at the wild Haizaki Shogo, Kai's Ryota was still a little shocked. "I didn't expect you to have wild nature." Haizaki Shogo smiled. "Why? Am I that weak in your mind?" Kai's Ryota shook his head and said thoughtfully, "No, you are very strong, but I don't want to lose this game." Haizaki Shogo suddenly laughed when he heard this. He felt as if he had heard something funny. "What did you say? You don't want to lose? Please, stop joking, okay? Where do you get your confidence?" Kai's Ryota said nothing. His expression became serious, and he looked like a predator about to hunt. Haizaki Shogo felt the change in breath, so he also closed his mouth and started to defend. Kai's Ryota took a deep breath. The match against the current Haizaki Shogo made him feel like he had returned to the scene he faced when he was dueling with Aomine Daiki. They are all equally terrifying. Kai's Ryota himself never thought that Haizaki Shogo would grow so fast. A boy with blue hair could not help but appear in Kai's Ryota's mind. "I have been fighting you one-on-one for so long, and I am very familiar with your attack frequency and methods. However, I have never been able to imitate your football skills." Now, I think I have to make a change. I want to win. Suddenly, the aura of Kai's Ryota's whole body began to change, as if he had transformed into another person. As a defender, Haizaki Shogo feels the most obvious. After feeling the change in Kai's Ryota's aura, Haizaki Shogo couldn't help but feel his heart tremble. This feeling Aomine, Kai's Ryo, was too moved. His movements were no longer as standardized as before, but became chaotic and disorderly. It's exactly like a street ball player playing ball. Haizaki Shogo was not familiar with such a rhythm for a while, allowing Ryota Kai's to break through. When Fang Jilai saw this scene, he felt interesting and curious. The current Kai's Ryota does not seem to be in the perfect imitation state in the original work. Instead, it seemed like a single imitation was performed. In other words, he did not imitate the skills of everyone in Teikō, but only imitated the skills of Aomine Daiki. It can be said that Kai's Ryota has awakened early. At this moment, Fang Jilai slightly recognized Kai's Ryota. His talent is indeed terrifying. After Kai's Ryota broke through Haizaki Shogo, he immediately jumped up. Haizaki Shogo followed closely and jumped up, blocking the path of Ryota Kai's shot with his hand. Suddenly, Kai's Ryota changed his movements in the air, and his original standard shooting posture became an infinite shooting. He took the ball in his right hand and flicked it, and the basketball was thrown into the frame. Originally, Haizaki Shogo was just skeptical at first, but when he saw this familiar action, he was finally convinced. Kai's Ryota imitated Aomine Daiki. I didn't expect. Your imitation can actually go this far. Kai's, you are strong. Chapter 167 Despair. After scoring the goal, Kai's Ryota took a breath and turned back to defend. After Haizaki Shogo landed, a smile of interest appeared on his face. Now he is not only facing Kai's Ryota, but also facing Kai's Ryota and Aomine Daiki. Come on, let me see what you can do. Transition of possession. Nijimura sent the basketball to Haizaki Shogo and stopped moving. The four members of Kurosaki No. 1 still stood there and did not participate in the attack. Haizaki Shogo is still the only one going to attack in the front court. In the stands, Kagami Taiga couldn't help but question when he saw this scene. Kai's is already on the field. Are they still planning to do this? Are they so confident in Haizaki? Kuroko Tetsuya looked at Fang Jilai with a slight smile on the court and understood what Fang Jilai was thinking. No, they're not confident in Haizaki-san. Kagami Taiga was stunned and asked, if you don't have confidence in Haizaki, then why don't they participate in the attack? Kuroko Tetsuya went on to explain, they are confident in themselves. They believe that even if Haizaki has never played before, they can win the game in the second half. Also, Kagami-san, you have forgotten one thing. Except for Haizaki-san, everyone else's physical strength in Kurosaki Daiichi has not been exhausted yet. As soon as these words came out, Kagami Taiga reacted immediately. Kurosaki Daiichi's main force did not contribute at all. Naturally, his physical strength was not consumed too much. But looking at Cage High, the main force's physical strength has almost been exhausted. If this continues, Cage High will only be completely defeated by Kurosaki Daiichi in the second half. Kagami Taiga put himself in a cage and carefully felt what it would be like if he were on the court. Despair, despair, despair. There is nothing but despair. There is no hope at all. Kagami Taiga suddenly felt a deep despair. After he put himself in a cage, he could not see a glimmer of hope. Not even a faint glimmer of hope could be seen. It's so powerful. It turns out that Cage has fallen into an endless abyss from the very beginning of the game. There is no hope of winning at all. On the field, Haizaki Shogo dribbled the ball quickly, then accelerated sharply to start a breakthrough. Even if Kai's Ryota imitates Aomine Daiki, he can't stop the wild Haizaki Shogo. After Haizaki Shogo entered the inside lane, it was like entering a no-man's land. He directly tore apart Cage's defense and drove the basketball into the basket. Kai's Ryota gritted his teeth and continued to perform infinite shooting in the next round. I have to say, infinite shooting is really strong. You never know where he's going to shoot the ball. Even if Haizaki Shogo turns on his wild nature and his intuition and speed are greatly enhanced, he still can't tell where Kai's Ryota will take action. So both sides completely began to attack. I can't stop you, and you can't stop me. Both sides will score based on their strength. It was a stalemate until the end of the second quarter. Beep. The second quarter is over. Halftime. Haizaki Shogo exited his wild state after hearing the whistle. He looked at Kai's Ryota and said, Kai's. Kai's Ryota turned his head, a little confused. What's up? Haizaki Shogo thought for a while and asked, Can you still see hope now? After hearing this, Kai's Ryota's expression suddenly became firm. Hope is always there. Haizaki Shogo closed his eyes after hearing this and said in a deep voice, Then I hope you can still see hope in the second half. After saying that, Haizaki Shogo turned and left, following Fang Jilai to the lounge. Kai's Ryota looked at Haizaki Shogo's leaving figure and murmured, Baffling. After finishing speaking, Kai's Ryota also turned around and walked towards the lounge. During halftime between the two sides, the audience was not idle, and they were still discussing the situation in the first half. It's amazing. Kurosaki Daichi completely suppressed Cage. But why? Why don't Magic Cube and Hongsuen take action? I don't know. Maybe I will take action in the second half. In the direction of Siren. Everyone in Siren looked very solemn, because the situation on the field was very bad. After 2 quarters, the score was 49-37, a difference of nearly 12 points. This is extremely scary, because the rest of Kurosaki Daichi did not participate in the offense at all. Haizaki Shogo scored all the goals alone. Ida Reiko put her thumb against her lower lip and kept thinking. Now she is not just a spectator, but a future challenger. Because if Siren wants to win the championship, he will definitely meet Kurosaki #1 in the future. Oh really? I can't think of any way to deal with it. Haizaki alone can eat a pot. Hinata Junpei grabbed his hair anxiously with both hands, and the thoughts in his mind were completely confused. Kagane Shinji's expression became worried. Cage, is there any hope of winning? Ida Reiko said at this time. I'm afraid it will be difficult because in the second half, I feel that Fang Jilai, who is #1 in Kurosaki, or one of Nijimura will take action, or they will do it together. In Kurosaki's first lounge, everyone from Kurosaki #1 was sitting on the bench, and the atmosphere was very cheerful. Haizaki Shogo drank some water and started talking with everyone. Hanamiya Makoto. Haizaki, how are you? Are you feeling good? Haizaki Shogo. It's a bit disappointing that kid ended up halfway, it's true. Several people chatted continuously without any tension. Fang Jilai is in love with Satsuki Momoi. Lai, will you go shopping with me after the fight? Lai, oops. Lai hasn't been at home lately. Baby, okay, I'll go there later. Hongsuen Shiozao looked ashamed. His juniors now don't shy away from showing affection to others. I'm a single guy, and I am still there. While Fang Jilai and Satsuki Momoi were talking and laughing, they seemed to have remembered something and turn around to remind them. By the way, Senior Nijimura will take over the game in the second half. If you have an open opportunity, you can attack directly. Don't hold anything back in the second half. You can take advantage of it. As for the second half, Fang Jilai did not plan to play. Wait until the next match against Aomine Daiki before playing with Aomine Daiki. As for Kai's Ryota, just let Nijimura repair and educate him. Compared to Kurosaki Daichi's ease, Cage side is much heavier. Everyone was looking at the ground with their heads buried, without any communication. The feeling the first half of the game gave them. There is only despair. Chapter 168, it's over after feeling the heavy atmosphere in the lounge. Kai's Ryota decided to do something. He stood up with a firm tone and said to the seniors present, Seniors, the game is not over yet. If you can, please give me the ball in the second half. I will do my best to win the game. The other people in Cage looked up at Kai's Ryota. After looking at Kai's Ryota's firm gaze, the desire to win deep in their hearts was once again aroused. Kasamatsu Yukio felt the change in himself. He smiled relievedly, then stood up and shouted, Everyone, the game is not over yet. Let's keep working hard. The knot is over. Kasamatsu Yukio knelt on the ground. His eyes were distracted, and he was confused as he looked at the numbers on the scoreboard. The numbers on the scoreboard at this time were very eye-catching. 118 to 41. In the second half, Cage only scored 4 points. It was obtained by Ryota Kai's from Haizaki Shogo. Fang Jilai noticed this and directly asked Nijimura Shizo to defend Kai's Ryota. It became obvious that Kai's Ryota was completely guarded. He worked hard until he ran out of energy and failed to score a goal in front of Nijimura Shizo. Kai's Ryota's face was full of disbelief, and he slumped down on the bench, a confused look on his face. Losing the gap.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.